I call the 2,425th meeting of the Milwaukee City Council to order. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and Comcast Cable Channel 30 in city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card for those at City Hall. They're over there on that table. Or emailing ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show their first and last names for the record. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. For more information, contact the city recorder at 503-786-7502. Servicios de traducción en español está disponible cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Para obtener más información, llama al secretario de la ciudad a 503-786-7502. Translation services are also available in other languages. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City of Milwaukee respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. And before I launch into our announcements, I just want to note that Councilor Stavin-Jord is unexpectedly out and may join us at some point later this evening. Okay, the city's 7 neighborhood district associations hold annual elections for leadership positions during their May meetings. If you live, own property or a business, or represent a nonprofit in one of the 7 NDAs, you are a member and you can participate in the voting process. If you are interested in running for a leadership position, you should attend your May meeting. Positions include chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, land use committee members, and others. For more information, stop by the city's homepage at milwaukeeoregon.gov and visit the Neighborhoods tab at the top of the page. The Friends of the Leading Library will hold their 22nd annual plant sale on this Saturday and Sunday, May 10th and 11th, and again Saturday, May 17th at Milwaukie Floral and Garden. Come out to shop for a selection of perennials, native plants, vegetables, trees, shrubs, and more, and all proceeds benefit your library. Join the Wetlands Conservancy at the next volunteer event at Minthorn Springs this Saturday at 9:30 a.m. May is American Wetlands Month, and volunteers will work on extending the trail and keeping back the thorns. Tools, gloves, and snacks are provided. This event is free and family friendly. For people who don't know where that is, you just park near in Milwaukie Marketplace, down near the Planet Fitness, and walk across 37th Street to the trailhead at Minthorn. The 2025 Corporal Diffie Veterans Fund Pancake Breakfast takes place on Saturday, May 17th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the American Legion Post 180. The fund helps provide emergency resources for veterans and their families. Breakfast is $10 per person and only $4 for those aged 12 and under. Please help. In our work session today, we had an update on the Kellogg dam removal project, and coming up on May 17th, please help document the plants, birds, insects, and other wildlife currently present in and around the soon-to-be restored Kellogg Creek. The Kellogg Creek BioBlitz will be held on Saturday, May 17th from 9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Learn more and register to participate on the North Clackamas Watershed Council website. For more information about each of these events, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukeeoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. I think there's one other event that happens before our next regular session that maybe warrants an announcement, and it's a conversation led by our council president at the library. Would you like to talk about that?
Happy to do that. If any of you listen to Ezra Klein on the New York Times, he's a columnist who I think a lot of us might be interested in. He's written a new book called Abundance that talks a lot about how progressive government can do a better job actually delivering for folks. So I'm excited to talk about how we can use that as a model in Milwaukee for how to respond to some of the Trumpism that we're seeing and the Doge comments that he might make, and what abundance looks like at a Milwaukee level.
Thank you. Okay, if no other announcements, then I will move on to the haiku. The cold breeze, the autumn leaves falling, I dance in the rain. So you might assume this was not written this week. This is one of the haikus submitted by some students at Milwaukie High School. I am in need of more haiku, so my email address is on there. You can also find it on the city's website. I am running out of haiku, so I would love to have some haiku submitted. There's not many rules. They can be about things going on in the city. They can be about seasonal things, they can be humorous, they can be sad, they can be whatever you want them to be. They just can't be overtly political or overtly religious, or and they do need to be G-rated. So please, just within those parameters, please send me some haiku. All right, so we are moving on to our proclamations and awards, and the first thing on the agenda is the Volunteer of the Year Awards. So I believe that our Community Engagement Coordinator, Jason Wax, is going to introduce that. Introduce our winner, which we all know because we were here when we voted, so we all know who the winner is, but I guess it's an announcement for the community at large.
While they're getting set up, you mentioned the farmer's market.
Oh, sure. While they're getting set up, last Sunday was opening day of the Milwaukie Farmers Market. It wasn't raining, which is super nice for the first day, because sometimes it's a downpour. So now every Sunday through Halloween, from 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please come out to the Milwaukie Farmers Market. And this Sunday is the city has its booth, and I will be there at the 11:30, from 11:30 to 2, the second shift. Any other counselors working this weekend? No. Okay. Anyway, the city has a booth. It has a lot of information about summer events and other things. It's a place to ask questions, and there's 2 people staffing that booth in 2 different shifts, and I'll be there for the second shift. Okay, now I'll turn it over to Jason. Do you have your, there you go.
Yes. Did you turn it on for me? Okay. You have that power. Thank you. I'll start over. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I was here back in March when you chose the 2024 Volunteer of the Year. And I'm just here tonight, as we normally do each year, to introduce that person. And for dramatic effect, I didn't have them come up right away. So But first, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the past winners. We'll have the mayor talk about all the folks that were nominated, and then we'll announce the winner and have them come up. So the Volunteer of the Year program, I won't say a lot about it. We've been doing it since 2012. And there's a list of all your winners. I think we have a past winner here tonight, at least one of them, sitting in the audience. So it's been a program that we've been doing since 2012. A lot of distinguished folks. So many of these people have done amazing things for the city. Many of them are still volunteering with us and doing amazing things for the city. So the program's been a really fun thing for me to be a part of. And, you know, I'm always looking forward to coming to choose the winner. I know that's a difficult decision, but you don't have to do that tonight. It's already been made. So Mayor, we did have about 10 nominations this year. If you'd like to read all of them.
Sure. I will read the name of the nominees, although they're here on the screen. David Aschenbrenner was previously Volunteer of the Year in 2015. And then other nominees were Jamie Berry, Pam Denham, Amy Ert, Joshua Freeman, Darlene Fritsch, Terry Geyer-Brindell, and then Terry Geyer-Brindell and Pam Denham as a team for their work on the Sustainability Fair. Virginia Pye, Colleen Rockwell, and Rebecca Stainer. And I'm going to read all about Pam, or you're going to read all about Pam?
You should just announce the winner first.
Okay. Well, I think I did.
I was looking for that dramatic effect.
Well, okay. It is my privilege to introduce the 2024 Volunteer of the Year Award winner, Pam Denham. All right, it's in my script, so I guess I'll read it. Pam Denham started volunteering when she was an 8-year-old Girl Scout and has continued to volunteer ever since. Since moving to Milwaukee 11 years ago, Pam has volunteered in so many ways it is difficult to list them all, but here are some highlights. Pam spent 8 years as the Island Station NDA representative on the city's Public Safety Advisory Committee. She has served on our Milwaukee Transportation System Plan Advisory Committee since 2023. She currently serves as the Island Station Neighborhood Association's secretary and has been volunteering with her NDA since moving to Milwaukee, holding a variety of roles. She is currently one of 2 board members for Milwaukee's Environmental Stewards Group, which was responsible for the styrofoam collection site at the Milwaukee Floral Shop and is responsible for the annual Sustainability Fair. Pam is a member of the Community Emergency Response Teams, also known as CERT. She is a co-team leader for the Alpha Team. She has taught medical classes for CERT. She is a nurse by profession. She has taught medical classes for CERT and helps to teach some of the ongoing training for Milwaukee CERT members. Through CERT, Pam has also participated in helping to ensure that the city's umbrella parade is safe for participants and has volunteered at the Milwaukee Police Department's shredding and prescription drug turn-in events. Pam is a board member of the Milwaukee Historical Society, which owns and operates the Milwaukee Museum. Pam is also a member of the Raging Grannies, a group of women who go out in the streets to promote peace, justice, and equality through song and humor. As you see, the list of volunteer contributions Pam provides to our community is extensive and continues to grow. She embodies the spirit of the Volunteer of the Year Award and is an inspiration to all. Please join me in giving Pam a round of applause as our 2024 Volunteer of the Year. Pam, if you would like to say something, you are welcome to do so, but no pressure either.
Well, since I get very tongue-tied, I wrote a couple things out. So I wanted to say, councilors and mayor, I am honored to be selected for the 2024 Volunteer of the Year Award. Many people who volunteer and give their time and enthusiasm are what makes our city a great place to live. Individuals can make positive change in their community, and I have met so many terrific people through volunteering in all my years here in Milwaukee. I'd like to thank some of the people that helped me get involved. Terry Geyer-Brindell, Greg Humer and Liz Start were there at the beginning for the Milwaukie Environmental Stewards Group. And again to Terry for the past 3 years with the Sustainability Fair. This will be our 4th year of the Sustainability Fair this September 6th, save the date. And we are partnering this time with Milwaukee Rotary. So they are learning the ropes and they will be putting it on next year. I want to thank Linda, Julie, and Jack with Milwaukee CERT and the entire team. Maitri, Jay, Camden, and Will for Bike Milwaukee. Charles, Joanne, Milo, David from Island Station. Steve, Sarah, David, Milo, and Linda from the Milwaukee Historical Society, or the museum. The world's largest museum dedicated to the history of Milwaukee, Oregon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will have, there is a volunteer picnic event this summer where leaders from our neighborhoods and leadership from our neighborhood association, the membership of our boards and committees are all invited. So we look forward to feting you there. And anybody, yeah. Just, I think, congratulations. We appreciate all your service in so many ways to our city. You really are an example, and I hope, we're doing interviews now for our boards and commissions coming up the next couple of weeks, and we are getting a lot of applications these days, which is nice, because when I first got on council, we had to beg people to serve on our boards and commissions. But anyway, you are an example of someone who really has volunteered in so many different ways for the city, so we appreciate it.
She will also be featured in the June pilot, so.
Okay.
It'll be in every mailbox in the city.
I have to be good then.
Yes, probably.
Okay.
We traditionally also take a photo with council.
Oh, okay,
When we're all done.
okay.
If that would be okay.
Even though we don't have the full council contingent, we'll still do the photo? Okay, okay. Yeah, thank you. We have a few proclamations to start this month, and the first one is for Mental Health Awareness Month, and it will be presented by our police chief, Ryan Burdick, and Felicity Tony. Is that the correct name with NAMI, with the National Alliance for Mental Illness? Do we have somebody here from NAMI? We apparently don't. It might just be you.
Yeah, there is a person interested in speaking on Zoom, but it's not.
It's-
Can you give an email, Scott? Hey.
Okay,
Well,
I think you can start.
Apologies for pinch hitting. I'm sure you know he's out tonight. But thank you for Mays, for being here, Council, Mayor Beatty, and City Manager Saber. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's a time to raise awareness, reduce stigma, and promote open conversations about mental health. It's also an opportunity to support those facing mental health challenges and to remind ourselves that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. We have an incredible program in Milwaukee for mental health, particularly our behavioral health program. Led Sutonic is probably the best guy this side of Mississippi for the behavioral health work. The work that our library does to be a welcoming space for those people suffering mental illness in a safe space. Don Holden, Brandy Johnson, Love One, Father's Heart. They're truly an amazing and inspiring team. It does take a comprehensive approach. The strategy our city is doing, I think, is leaps and bounds ahead of others. Our city is being copied in other communities, so they're looking at especially the library work and that kind of safe space, the connection to services, that broad partnerships that we're doing, even with parole and probation, so that people are checking in. Inevitably, that also alleviates my officers from contacting people that are maybe just starting a new job. So to kind of bring back the focus for Mental Health Awareness Month, it's just, it takes a team, and I'm really proud of the work that we're doing in this area.
Thank you. And would you like to read the proclamation, or would you like me to read it?
I'll defer to you, Mayor. Defer to you, Mayor. Thank
Okay, yeah, I don't have my computer up, so I need it on the screen. Okay, whereas mental health is part of everyone's overall health and well-being, and mental illnesses are prevalent in our county, state, and nation, with 1 in 5 adults experiencing a mental health issue every year. And whereas stigma and the resulting discrimination is a primary obstacle to early identification and effective treatment of individuals with mental illness and their ability to recover to lead full, productive lives. And whereas approximately half of chronic mental illness begins by the age of 14, and suicide is the second leading cause of death of people ages 10 to 24. Whereas long delays of sometimes decades often occur between the time symptoms first appear and when individuals get help, and it is important to maintain mental health, learn the symptoms of mental illness to get help, and cure the stigma and discrimination that too often interferes. And whereas every citizen and community can make a difference in helping cure the stigma and discrimination that for too long has surrounded mental illness and discouraged people from getting help. And whereas public education and civic activities can encourage mental health and help improve the lives of individuals and families affected by mental illness. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Beatty, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 2025 to be Mental Health Awareness Month in Milwaukie to increase public understanding of the importance of mental health, to promote identification and treatment of mental illnesses, and to cure the resulting stigma and discrimination. Thank you. Thank you. We often, I'll let you talk. We often have a presenter from the National Association of Mental Illness. I'm sorry they're not here tonight, but, this is a serious issue in our community. And so I think it's important that we recognize this. And Councilor Khosrowbadi works in this area, so.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to, I know everybody knows how important this issue is. I just don't want us to get numb to it because it's something that we deal with every day. I work specifically in veteran mental health. And unfortunately, Sunday night, we lost a veteran to suicide from the Clackamas County Veterans Village, which if you're not familiar with that, it's an organization. It's run by Do Good. It's housing for veterans, for houseless veterans. They help them get on their feet, and it provides housing for up to 2 years for our vets. And this poor veteran, I was working closely with him to try to find him some help. It wasn't that he wasn't asking for it. It's just he couldn't find it in time. So I say that to tell you all that if you are ever in that position, for God's sake, call somebody. Anybody. Just call someone. Hell, call me. My phone is on the website. But don't do this alone. You can't. You can't. It's not because you're not strong enough. It's not because you're not tough enough. This is a whole nother darkness that we're dealing with. And it's a place that I hope nobody ever has to go. So I'm imploring you, I'm begging you, if you need the help, please seek it.
Thank you, Counselor. On that somber note, I think we will move on to our next proclamation, which is also presented by our police chief for National Law Enforcement Week.
Thank you, Mayor Beatty. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today as we approach National Police Week for 2025. It's a time to honor the service, dedication, and sacrifice of law enforcement officers across our country and right here in our community. This week is not only a time of reflection, but of gratitude. We pause to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty, officers who served with honor and gave everything to protect others. We also want to specifically recognize and thank the officers serving this community, the men and women who show up every day with professionalism, integrity, and compassion. Policing today requires more than enforcing laws. It demands listening, adapting, and building relationships with the community and the community members we serve. I'm proud of the work our officers do to keep our community safe and the relationships we've created along the way. As chief, I'm also grateful for the ongoing and steady support from council, city leadership, and the residents of this fantastic community. It truly is a big partnership, and it takes a team effort. I think we have some great programs in the city. The direction is fantastic, and it's truly a great effort, and our officers are lucky to work in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a great team of officers at the police department that I think we've all recognized for a long time. I will use this moment to call out again, May 17th, the Corporal Diffie Fund breakfast. That is an initiative sort of started by one of our police officers. It's in tandem with the American Legion. And as noted before, it raises money for veterans in crisis. So come out and have a good breakfast and support a good cause on the 17th. Okay, so on to the proclamation. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, more than 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. And whereas nationally, gunfire continues to be the #1 cause of line of duty death for police officers. And whereas the Oregon Fallen Officer Memorial contains over 180 names of fallen Oregon officers, including Sergeant James Worrell of the Milwaukie Police Department, who died on December 31st, 1953. And whereas there were 147 officers killed in the line of duty across the United States in 2024. And whereas the people of Milwaukie wish to express their greatest appreciation for the sacrifice and service of those officers. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Beatty, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 15th through May 21st, 2025 to be National Law Enforcement Week in Milwaukie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. We had two more proclamations scheduled, but the one for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we are going to postpone to our May 20th meeting. And so I will move on to our last proclamation, which is for last but not least, Public Service Recognition Week. We have some people from our city union, AFSCME. We also have a police union as well, but I think
And
these
we
guys...
have the president from MPEA.
Oh, we do. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So before they start, I just want to say it's always important to recognize public servants. And I mean, public servants is a big pool, right? It's the people who work for the city. It's your teachers. It also happens to be Teachers Recognition Week. Public service is a big pool of people important to making our community work. Public servants, at least on the federal level, are under attack right now. I am a former federal employee. I had some friends visiting recently who are former federal employees, and it's a pretty rough time to be a federal employee. I hope it's a better time to be a City of Milwaukie employee. But I wanted to thank the folks for coming out to help us recognize or note Public Service Recognition Week. So who starts? Do we have a? Oh, okay.
Don't forget to hit the red.
Hit the red button, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, City Council and Mayor Beatty. First, I just want to thank you for recognizing Police Week and supporting Public Servant Week. As the MPA Union President, I speak on behalf of all of our employees and just want to thank you for the support that we get from City Council, the city leaders, and the community that we serve. I've worked here over 21 years, and I feel like this is the strongest I've seen our relationship with the city and the best support I've seen. Thank you.
Hello, sorry, hot mic. Mayor Beatty, members of council, Nicole Madigan, Deputy City Recorder, but tonight I have my Union 350-5 Secretary hat on. Definitely, thank you. Seconding what Tom said over here, it's the work that we do, civil service work it's hard work, but it's wonderful to do it in a city where I think we can all say we feel like we're making a difference, and it feels great to be appreciated for that work, especially in, like you said, the times that we're having now. So thank you. And this is Camilo. Camilo is our new VP of our union, and of course, Jacob has stepped into our president position, so.
Awesome. And are you guys going to add anything, or you're just along to show your support? Okay. Okay, great. Does anybody want to read the proclamation?
We're going to take turns reading it.
You're going to, awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Whereas the first full week of May has been designated as Public Service Recognition Week around the nation since 1985 to recognize and promote the important contributions of the diverse people who meet the needs of our country through service at federal, state, and local government levels. And
whereas the delivery of essential services at all levels of government only happens because of the efforts of dedicated public servants, and
whereas public service is a noble calling involving a variety of challenging and rewarding profession, and Milwaukee's approximately 150 employees year after year provide a range of essential functions to our community, from public safety to ensuring safe water and public sanitation, to planning, engineering, and building services, to libraries and maintaining transportation routes, and...
Tell me what the last one?
Sure. Where is it?
right there.
Now,
One more up.
Whereas public servants have much to offer the Milwaukie community, as demonstrated by their dedication, expertise, and innovative ideas, and serve as examples by passing on institutional knowledge to train the next generation of public servants.
Now, therefore, I, Lisa Beatty, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 4th through 10th, 2025 to be Public Service Recognition Week, and commend Milwaukee's public servants for their outstanding contributions during Public Service Recognition Week and throughout the year. And I call upon a new generation to consider a career in public service. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out this evening. I did have a slide, Mr. Stauffer. Okay. As I mentioned, it's also Teacher Appreciation Week. Teachers are one group of public servants as well. And there's an outfit called Donors Choose. So Donors Choose is a way anyone in the community can support a teacher in your community, at some project that they're trying to do for their class. So I took a look at Donors Choose today, and there's quite a list of projects from Milwaukie High School where teachers are looking for financial support to do something for their classrooms. And some, they're very modest requests like, providing some funding to buy snacks so that kids stay awake in class. And in others, they're much larger projects, like there's a project to buy a new electronic keyboard piano for the music department. So I just wanted to encourage people to go online and check out Donors Choose, whether you can give $5 or you're someone who can give $500. There's lots of ways to plug in and support teachers and students in the community. So, all right. With that, we are done with proclamations and we're moving on to community comments. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community comments on city business that is not otherwise on the agenda. Before we begin, is there follow-up from the April 15th community comments, Ms. Sager?
Mayor, there is. We've received quite a bit of correspondence both at that last meeting and in between. So I have more tonight to say than I usually do, but I will try to keep it brief. The first comment I want to respond to is a comment that was made in person at the April 15th meeting. And this was in regards to a recent arrest actually made that day in downtown Milwaukie. So at the April 15th meeting, a community member testified regarding an altercation that they had witnessed between MPD officers and an individual in the downtown area. And the testifier was very concerned about what they had witnessed. Immediately following that council session, Assistant City Manager Brilio, Chief Burdick, and I set up a time to watch the body-worn camera footage of that incident of both officers who were involved in that arrest. There were 2 officers. The arrested individual had stolen items from a local gas station, assaulted the clerk at that gas station, and was evading officers. That individual ran into an alley behind Libby's, where the officers pursued on foot. After viewing the incident myself and discussing the details of the arrest with the chief, I can certainly understand why witnessing this was hard for the community member. I too really find watching these struggles difficult to watch. I do not, however, believe any policy violations occurred in this case, and this is why it's so important that we have body-worn camera footage. The individual was not complying with police instructions to stop or show their hands, and they continued to reach for their waistband, which caused plausible concern among the officers that the individual may be armed. They made several verbal requests to the individual to comply and verbally communicated that a taser would be used if the individual did not comply. Looking back at this individual's arrest history, this person has been detained several times in the last year and resisted arrest or threatened violence against law enforcement or bystanders in many of those instances. After the taser was deployed, officers were able to handcuff the individual and immediately sought medical attention, as is protocol for removing taser probes. Paramedics arrived, assessed the individual, and successfully removed the probes. The individual sustained no injuries as a course of the arrest. Again, I want to stress that I appreciate and empathize that witnessing struggles like this can be really stressful and disconcerting. And again, I would be lying if I didn't say that I had a similar kind of emotional response watching it. But I talked to the chief about, about policy in this case, really tried to understand the full thing and reiterated my expectations and asked that he reiterate them with all officers about the importance of de-escalation practices. And I know Chief Burdick firmly supports that. So that's the response on that one. The second item I'm going to be responding to is some public comments that were submitted to the record via email regarding a middle housing development in the Mission Park neighborhood. And I assume some of the folks in the audience are here for that tonight. So good to see you. All city council members, as well as several members of staff, were included on that email chain. This is about a development off of Southeast Harrison in the Mission Park area of the Hector Campbell neighborhood. The email chain has been put in the record for tonight's meeting, so if anyone wants to go back and read it in its entirety, you can find it there. Given the number of community members on the email chain, the inclusion of all of council, and the nature of the comments provided, I propose that I'd respond on behalf of city staff at this meeting. Neighbors were also informed that they could come and testify at this regular session or future regular session meetings. And I'll also talk a little bit about this at the end, but the mayor and I have been talking about plans to hold a separate specific session on middle housing where other folks who may not be in the know about this particular development can come and get their questions answered. So I plan to keep my response as brief as I can and focused on responding to the questions and comments that were raised in those email chains. If further topics are raised tonight during testimony that I don't speak to, I'll prepare a response to those next week. And I just want to also express my appreciation, I don't think he's here today, but to Brett Kelver, one of our senior planners who has sent several detailed responses to these neighbors as well.
And I hate to interrupt you, but you actually said next week, but you mean in 2 weeks.
I mean May 20th,
May
thank
20th.
you. I just skipped the weeks that we don't have council meetings. They don't, just always so excited for the next one. Okay, so I'm going to address 4 topics that kind of came up in the email chain. The first I'm going to address is the land use decisions and state regulations that got us to where we are today. Which is a proposal, or which is a development of 2 quadplexes under construction on 2 lots on Southeast Harrison. I'm first going to speak about the state and local policy context, kind of big picture, and then talk about the timeline of this particular development. So starting with that policy context, the city adopted a comprehensive plan in 2020, which included policy direction to make housing more affordable and to allow more different housing types around the city. Now, shortly before that, before the adoption of the comp plan, the state also passed House Bill 2001, which requires cities to allow middle housing types on lots zoned for residential development that allow single detached units. Cities had a grace period in order to implement that. So it was passed in 2019, but the state said you have until 2022 cities to make this the law of the land. Milwaukie adopted its middle housing code in spring 2022. And since then, middle housing, which includes up to a quadplex, so up to a 4-unit structure, can now be developed on any RMD lot by right in Milwaukie. One question that was raised, a great question by neighbors in the most recent round of public comment, was wanting to know more about how different cities have implemented and interpreted HB 2001. There are some nuanced differences between cities. For example, Milwaukee's council chose to allow detached plex units. Not every city does allow detached quadplexes or triplexes, but Milwaukie does. But based on state statute, all cities are required to allow up to that 4-unit quadplex on any single family lot that is owned for single family. So after House Bill 2001, a few other state mandates followed. It's been a busy few years for our legislature in terms of housing. In 2021, the state legislature passed Senate Bill 438. This allows what's called middle housing land divisions. So this says in those middle housing developments, you can now divide that lot into sublots and sell those units individually, really trying to encourage sort of home ownership of these smaller units. And then finally, the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities, or CFEC rules that were passed by the state in 2023, they mandated a bunch of things, but among them, they mandated that cities review their parking requirements. So based on the CFEC standards, which are again state rules, 80% of Milwaukee's area fell into the standards of being close enough to transit that we had to eliminate minimum parking requirements. City Council in 2024, last year, adopted the code that made us compliant with CFEC, and they did have a decision to make then. They could have stopped at that 80%, but they chose to make the entire city compliant and make it, the entire city removed parking minimums. Now, I do want to note that the site where these comments have discussed, the site off of Southeast Harrison would have fallen into that 80% mandated section by the state anyway. So whether or not council had gone for the full city limits or not, this site still would have had no parking minimums. Okay, that's the big context. So now I want to address the timeline of this specific development in question on Southeast Harrison. In 2021, the city received an application to subdivide property in that neighborhood into 8 separate lots, 3 of which had existing houses on them. At that point, the code only allowed single-family homes on these lots. And this is what was shown on schematic drawings included in the subdivision application. It's important to note, though, that the subdivision approval was not and could not be made contingent on any particular type of home being built on those lots. The question in front of the City and Planning Commission was specifically about subdividing that property. It was during these hearings on the subdivision that much discussion occurred about the Harrison Street connector, which I'm going to return to in just a minute. So the subdivision was approved in 2022, and if you remember from my history lesson just above, shortly after was when the city adopted its code mandated by House Bill 2001 from the state. So this then allowed middle housing up to quadplexes to be allowed outright, which what outright means is that the city doesn't get to say yes or no. If it's allowed outright, we have to approve those developments. Then when the city received a development application for the property to develop quadplexes, it was approved because that is now allowed outright in the underlying RMD code because of House Bill 2001 and because the quadplexes met the applicable development standards. In the last few months, the reason I think this is coming back up now, the landowner applied for that middle housing land division. So built the quadplexes, now wants to be able to sell them individually. Again, due to state law, cities don't have the ability to deny that middle housing land division. The state actually defines these really narrow criteria upon which you can appeal a middle housing land division, and that appeal isn't even heard by us or by you. It has to be heard by an independent referee. So zooming back out, I can really appreciate how the neighbors in this area feel frustrated when they may be expected for single-family homes, and now they see quadplexes getting developed. But I do want to clarify that this was not a choice for staff to approve or deny. Because of that state legislation, property owners can build up to a quadplex on these lots by right. One commenter on the email chain asked about whether an overlay could be implemented that might place limits on middle housing density based on density of neighboring properties, and I really appreciate the creativity and the thoughts. Our assessment is that we don't believe that would be legal under House Bill 2001. So turning to the comments about the design of the Harrison Street connector, or connection, this was a significant topic of discussion at the 2022 hearings on the proposed subdivision. I can confirm that the developer has built the street to the standards that were required in the 2022 decision, which was a one-way street configuration negotiated with the neighbors and the developer to provide the required fire access, but also limit cut-through traffic in that neighborhood. Several commenters referenced a bollard. There was a bollard discussed during those conversations about the one-way street design, and it does show up on some schematics for the connector in the original subdivision application. That bollard was never included as a condition of approval, and that's why you don't see it today. But that said, my engineering staff are very willing to work with the developer and neighbors to look at the current configuration and explore other solutions, maybe a bollard, that could maximize safety and clarity for drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians. And we can be following up on next steps there. The third section I kind of want to talk about, and I am getting close to done, I promise, is around some questions regarding the city's authority to review and approve contractors' licenses and records. So the city is kind of has to operate within a bigger statute of state code around building codes. And when we get a development application, we use the state's e-permitting system called Acela to look up that contractor. The building division, and all the data we get in Acela about a contractor comes from the Oregon Construction Contractors Board, or CCB. So the building division, my building division, must issue permits to contractors with an active license status, regardless of infractions. Even if we did additional research into the contractor's history, we would not legally be allowed to deny the permit if they have an active license status as determined by the state building code division. In this case, the building division has issued permits to a contractor with an active building license. And finally, several comments discussed concerns about code enforcement related to very tall arborvitae at the entrance to Southeast Harrison, illegal parking, and some other concerns. Code enforcement provided notices to the property owner with the arborvitae and set a May 4th deadline for removal, and I believe since then it has been removed, so that's great news. I also want to say to the other, code infractions, whether it be illegal parking up on the curb, erosion control concerns, please report those. Please let us know. You can always call non-emergency, or for erosion control, you can email erosioncontrol@milwaukeeoregon.gov, and we can come and look at those and provide citations. People need to be following our code, and we can enforce that. Okay, so to close, I want to acknowledge and appreciate the time that the neighbors have taken to write in comments and come testify tonight. As I said before, I can certainly appreciate the frustrations and the anxiety that can come with increasing development, density, and a changing legal landscape. Some comments have implied that staff may have intentionally misled or withheld information on this development, and I want to sincerely express that that is never our intent or our expectation. My staff really do take their responsibility to be responsive and clear really seriously. And in this case, conditions changed over the course of the development process that altered what was allowable by right. But I will say this situation has revealed an opportunity for us to really improve our communication and education about middle housing laws, the process the city goes through to review development proposals, and what we can and can't do in our city authority and with available resources. My staff are working on some communication tools and resources to better communicate these topics. And as I mentioned, I'm working with the mayor to put together a public meeting as well for folks to come and get their questions answered, both from electeds and from staff. There are a lot of limits on what the city can do, but we are always open to discussing ways we can make things better within reason and within our means. That was long, I know. There were, just to finish my recap, we also received comments about the historic inventory and about the Fernberg Park Picnic Shelter. I'm not going to respond to those tonight. I think those are, I just want to point you to them in your packet. And
I know, at least on one of those. We have somebody here who wants to testify, so you'll get to respond to them next time.
excellent.
Okay, so I'm going on with my script for those who want to testify. I have 2 people so far who want to testify. If you want to testify and you haven't done one of these yellow forms, they're on the table back there. Please fill one out. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit a yellow comment card found on the table at the back of chambers. If you are on Zoom, use the raise hand reaction to alert staff that you wish to speak. And when instructed to do so, click the microphone button to speak and then to unmute yourself. If you are phoning in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit a written comment via email to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, this is not the time for discussion. The city manager will respond again at the next meeting to comments that require follow-up. So first, I'm going to call Martha Germany. And Martha submitted a packet of written things that Scott is going to scan tomorrow and get to all of council.
That's correct, Mayor. And I'll also point out that there is one hand raised on Zoom when we get to that point.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Martha, hit the red button so that the light comes on and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. To Mayor Lisa Beatty, Council President Will Anderson, and members of City Council. My name is Martha Germany, and I'm here today as a resident of the Linwood neighborhood and a homeowner whose property directly adjoins Fernberg Park. On April 25th, 2025, I became aware of a proposed project to construct a picnic shelter in Fernberg Park. A canvass of property owners bordering Fernberg Park revealed that not one of the residents we spoke to had received any prior communication regarding the shelter project. Today, I am submitting a document titled Community Response in Opposition to Proposed Shelter Building in Fernberg Park. This statement has been signed by property owners whose homes adjoin or are in close proximity to the park. Included is a map showing the locations of the signatories to help illustrate the scope of concerned stakeholders. Additionally, I've attached documentation tracking the timeline and communications related to this proposal. Our research indicates that the Linwood Neighborhood District Association has not completed a feasibility study nor adequately engaged in due diligence to gather input from directly impacted residents. Without following the rules set forth in statewide planning goal number 1 regarding citizen involvement, the Linwood NDA has contacted and misrepresented the interests of the neighborhood to the following entities: Milwaukie Parks Foundation, City Land Use Planning Department, North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, the City of Milwaukie Parks and Recreation Board, and Milwaukee City Council. We respectfully request that the City Council delay or reconsider this proposal until a transparent, inclusive process can be conducted, one that involves the residents most directly affected. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Germany. Thanks for coming, and we will make sure that all of council gets copies of your
Thank you.
statement.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, next I have Cameron McKillop. So again, hit the red button.
So, Cameron McKillop, I'm here to talk about the Harrison Street development. So, I would like to start off by saying my problem, I know that some of my neighbors might feel differently. My problem is not with middle housing. I think that it's a great tool to bring housing prices down. Great. Okay, now I do have a problem with how this specific project has been implemented and the infrastructure that we have because of the way that it's been implemented. So the developer initially had a variance for his garage to stay there for his residents of the house that was initially on this lot. And so he got the variance and to help out his tenants. And then the tenants move out and he develops this garage into a duplex. And the problem that I have here is the reason why the street is so narrow was to add a variance for that garage. And then the street now is not able to have adequate parking for the new housing that has now, I believe it's 4 or 5 times as many houses that are going to be in this area, which I'm good with that, but I want to make sure that we're adequately, building our road to have the cars be able to because, okay, I understand this rule around how we have transportation in the area. We have buses, but where does everyone work? For me to commute to the other side of town, using public transport, that would take 2 hours. For my wife to go to her job in Oregon City, that would take an hour and she would have to walk a mile, on top of. This is not realistic. There are going to be people living in these houses that have cars. There has to be enough parking for them. That does not have to be, off-street parking, but we should at least have enough street parking. On top of that, there are some major safety issues with this new design of sidewalk. It's even with the road. I have had at least 6 different cars that have parked on the sidewalk. That causes a safety issue for anyone trying to use that sidewalk. They have to go out into the road to get around these cars. And just to bring back to the issue with the amount of parking spaces, the developer has had his team parking illegally all down that road this whole time. So that just continues to show the issue with what parking is available. And I don't think that current infrastructure is gonna do the trick for that many houses going in. Along with the additional probably 4 houses going in across the street from there, he has another part of his land that's gonna probably have another 4 on top of that. So we're talking about a 20 house development and not adjusting infrastructure after that initial variance was given. I see some opportunity for us to possibly extend the sidewalk on that other side and widen the road. I think that we can be creative around what we do to add that infrastructure, but I would like, you to take a tour with me around, just like Will did. I appreciate Will coming out and seeing it, getting more than 3 minutes worth of conversation in around the problems with this. So yeah, I would welcome any of you to come out and I'll show you around and give you more context. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, and next I have Steve Tallman.
Good evening. My name is Steve Tallman, and I want to thank the council and the mayor for allowing us to speak tonight with regard to the Fernberg Park shelter proposal. On April 25th, which is a Saturday, I was out in my yard weeding, and one of my neighbors came up to me and said, "Have you seen this?" And I said, "No, what is it?" And it's a proposal to add a shelter to the Fernberg Park. The proposal basically is asking not if we want the shelter, they are asking, where do you want it? So this got my curiosity up, and Martha Germany and I went around to all of the houses surrounding the park. There's 13 houses that surround Fernberg Park. Not one of them was notified about this. So we started digging and we found that this has been ongoing for close to a year now. And for whatever reason, the people that surround the park were never notified of this project at all. That's the part that disturbs me the most, was that in my business career, we've always addressed issues with the conflicted parties right up front. This wasn't done. And we've got some neighbors that are very angry. Martha did it very politely. I can guarantee you, if you read some of the letters that were addressed to Greg Hemmer of the NDA, they were not polite. So I'm going to ask the same thing as Martha, that we put a pause on this project and that we can talk about it in more detail. And I think it's real important that we get the rest of the group, because we've done our homework. I think one of the ladies that wrote a letter tonight stated it really eloquently. She said, "It's amazing how I have to find out this kind of information from my neighbors who don't have any relationship to the city council, the NDAs, or at all." But we want to go ahead and talk about it. And we've got probably 8 to 10 letters from people that are surrounding that park already. So I'd be glad to forward anything that you'd like, any of the letters that were sent to Greg Hemmer. That's all.
Thank you. I suspect we got them all, but we've gotten quite a few. And then one more. I have one more. Oh, wait. Sorry. I am disorganized here. Roland Stafford? Roseanne? Roland? Oh. Okay.
So my question is about the Harrison development is, does the developer have a sidewalk closure permit? So you need to be talking to him, because my husband and I were out walking today. The street is covered with construction debris, wood, porta potty, everything's on there, there's no barrier. They also, there's trenching going on the property with no barriers whatsoever. I think that's a danger. I'm sure OSHA wouldn't like to hear about that. So I think someone needs to talk to the developer about how he's taking care of this site. It's dangerous. And the other thing is there's debris that ends up in the street. They're also parking illegally on that street, which I guess is the parking problem. So just want to let you guys know that. Thank you.
So get a flat tire this weekend.
Sir. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. We've got other people waiting to testify. So we have one person on Zoom waiting to testify.
That's correct, Mayor Beatty.
Okay. If you could please, I don't see the name.
The name in Zoom is ePlanet Thunderstriker, and will allow ePlanet to speak.
So Mr. or Ms. Thunderstriker, we usually ask people to put their name and city of residence in their identification. We will give you 3 minutes, but appreciate you beginning with that information. Okay, you are recognized. Please unmute yourself if you're muted. We do not hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We're sort of beginning to hear you. Can you speak up?
Not too much. I'm at a library. This is the first chance I would be able to get to verify that my emails are going through. I'm dealing with some corruption out here in the city of Irvine. And this is I sent you guys an email related to my problems, and I'm just going to see if maybe next week that goes through. I mean, I don't know if you can hear me or comment or whatever.
We are hearing you better now. We are hearing you better now. It's a little bit garbled, but it's coming through better now.
Okay. I've tried contacted some federal agencies today, the CIA and a couple others. I tried before, but I know I was getting spoofed. And related to what you guys said, if the Raging Grays can get behind this, because this is related to, it's going to be related to, hopefully, to a World Citizens Organization, a World Peace, and if they were talking about the mental health problems. I just got sending an email that this is related to no direct conflict warfare with like psychological ops or music as a cultural influence, because I'm blacklisted in the music industry. And so it's in the email, and I just want to make sure that you guys got it. And I just thank everyone. That seems like a really nice place to be. If it works out, I'll get that keyboard for the people in the music department. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I do know the recorder told me he received an email from you earlier, and he will share it with the rest of council. He will share it with all of council. I haven't seen it either, but we will receive it later today or tomorrow. So thank you. Okay, anyone else?
We do have another hand raised, Mayor Beatty. Dylan Cruz.
Mr. or Ms. Cruz, you have 3 minutes.
Hi there, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Great. So Mayor Beatty, members of the council, thanks for the opportunity to testify with you all virtually tonight. For the record, my name is Dylan Cruz. I'm a resident over at 10449 Southeast 51st Avenue. So living just across the street from the development that was brought up earlier, adjacent to Harrison Street. I appreciate the conversation tonight and the responses from Emma and from Will, and you being willing to engage with the neighbors. I live right next door to Cameron and appreciated some of the suggestions, the comments, and the concerns that he raised here. Just a couple things that I wanted to raise that I think would be helpful as part of the conversation, and you all being willing to continue to facilitate kind of the growth and expansion of middle housing within the area. I just want to make sure that we're accurately representing some of the developments being built here, knowing that quadplexes are legal under the state underlying statute. it sounded like there may have been a variance or an additional overlay that the city of Milwaukie agreed to do to allow for individual units. That's what we're dealing with here. They're not quadplexes, they're actually individual units, so 800 square foot houses that are being built. And then the lot across the street from us, it has 2 individual lots as well, which could be subdivided into an additional 800 square foot houses. So I think some of the pushback or the concern we're seeing is that you could see 16 houses built on what were 4 lots as of 2022. So understanding obviously the middle housing and being a part of it, but I think a big difference between quadplexes and 16 individual units, and then just the additional infrastructure, the cars, the parking situation that comes along with that. So I think Cameron raised some really good points, for the neighbors that are living adjacent to this. Will gave me some great responses, I think, just kind of thinking about what more we could do here in terms of additional infrastructure to facilitate the growth of middle housing. A lot of this area south of King Road is undeveloped. We don't have a lot of sidewalks. We don't have delineations around parking. I think you're gonna have a lot of conflicts between neighbors in terms of where you can park your car. Is it an extension of somebody's yard in their house? And we just need to think about some of that investment in infrastructure as we're putting more housing in. And if there's anything that the city can be doing to direct more resources towards that and develop more of that, I think it'd be a really wise investment to kind of warm people up to this idea and make sure we're moving along with the idea of additional housing coming into it. I think a lot of the conversations and just consideration around contractors, just how things are being managed, just respect for neighbors are appreciated, because we're going to see a lot more of this in the area in the future here. And then one little minor plug I just want to push. They planted a bunch of trees over here along the road. Nobody's watering those trees. It's been hot. It's been dry recently. We cut down a lot of vegetation in the neighborhood to accommodate the new development. It'd be a shame if all these trees that they just planted died. So if there's any plug that we can put in for the developer and the contractor or the city to come out and make sure that a lot of the landscaping we put in doesn't die, I think that'd be smart. So I'll just echo some of the comments from Cameron. If y'all want to come by, take a tour, walk around, talk about some infrastructure improvements, and I think just being realistic about the development and the growth and the people that are going to come along and live in these units in these houses, and making sure we all have space here together and we can have this good neighborhood and environment that we all want, and maximizing that livability. I think it'd be really, really important, and we'd appreciate your time and consideration. So happy to talk more. Emma, thanks for your work. Will, thanks for doing what you're doing on this. And I want to give a big shout out for Brett. He's been fabulous coming out, talking to neighbors. So thanks for what you're doing. Let's keep it happening.
Thank you. Additional commenters? Additional commenters in the room? Okay. Pardon?
Can I say one thing really quick?
Sure.
Just for folks, we don't respond right now typically. I would say at the end of the meeting, we're going to have council reports where we're able to talk more at length about some subjects. I'd encourage you to watch there. I have some of your emails, so I'll send you a link to that part of the council meeting as well, if you're interested. But we'll discuss it more then. And I appreciate you all for coming out.
Well, as Emma alluded to, we will probably have a separate meeting, not about this particular, not about one not one development, but about middle housing generally too. So we'll be getting that on the schedule in the next, month or two. Okay, if no more comments, I would just close by noting for the neighbors in Linwood that your NDA meets on Thursday. Might be good to be there and talk to them. Okay. With that, we will move on from community comment then. To the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes March 11th, minutes of the City Council, March 11th study session, March 18th work session, March 18th regular session. A resolution authorizing a project change request incorporating redistributed funds from a regional flexible fund allocation program for the Washington Monroe Street Greenway project. A resolution acting as the local contract review board authorizing a Microsoft enterprise agreement and purchase of software support services from SHI International Corp. An Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission application for Waverly Greens Apartments, new license. I will just note that on the March 11th study session minutes, there was, it wasn't clear as to council participation. Councilor Khosrowbadi was out of state that day, so he was not present at that meeting. And it was also unclear about Councilor Stavanger, was she there or not? It was kind of conflicting info, but she was there. So staff have cleaned that up, but I'm assured that that's qualifies as a scrivener's error, and so we don't have to pull the minutes for that reason. So with that said, I will ask if any council member wishes to remove a consent agenda item. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None heard. The consent agenda is approved. All right, so our first business item tonight is annexation of 4920 Southeast Lake Road, file number A-2025-001. And it will be presented by our senior planner, Vera Colias.
Evening, Mayor, councilors. Vera Colias, senior planner, here to present the annexation of the property at 4920 Southeast Lake Road. This is an annexation of a property that's approximately 1.17 acres, currently has a single detached unit and an accessory building on the property. There is no change in the utility connections at this time. It will be serviced by Clackamas River Water, as well as Water Environmental Services as it is right now. Any future development would then be connected to utilities in Barbara Lynn Way, which is the adjacent right-of-way. But we do not have any active development proposals before us at this time. This is just for the annexation of the property. The property would be zoned in the city as RMD, or moderate density residential. That is the complementary zone to the R10 zoning designation that it has in the county. The property would be withdrawn from the Clackamas County Service District for enhanced law enforcement and the Clackamas County Service District number 5 for streetlights. Again, I know that we have received some email correspondence about the annexation. I just wanted to reiterate that we do not have a development proposal for the property at this time before us under review. Again, this is just for the annexation. And I know that there was some concerns expressed about parking for any subsequent development. And I just wanted to remind folks that Ordinance number 2243, as it was adopted and became effective at the end of June of 2024, the city cannot require off-street parking for this development or any development in the city. I don't know that that satisfies anyone, but that's the answer. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Vera? We did receive I guess there was a piece of correspondence in the packet, and then I think we've received one since. Has there been any more correspondence? Okay. Is there anybody in the room who wants to testify about this? Yeah, you can come forward, Carmen, and then fill out the yellow card after. Yeah. Yes, please state your name for the record. And yeah, push the button. There.
Hello, my name is Carmen Meyer. I am one of the board members of the community. It's a HOA community. It's a HOA.
Cherokee Farms, HOA.
Right. And we are just kind of concerned of what kind of properties are going to be in there. What, houses, for how many people and all of that. Is that, can we have more information on the next? Is that something that we are going to do more of this? More information of
have people testify, and then we ask them to sit back and staff can answer. So ask all your questions now, and then we'll let Vera answer.
Yeah, we're just kind of concerned about what kind of buildings are going to be in there, and if there is going to be some kind of also the entrance, there's gonna be some cars from in the Barber Lane. But right now it's like a dead end. And so we're just kind of concerned how many people and all of that. So, and also, we would like to find out, I guess, more information if there is going to be more meetings about, to give us more information about this.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions, Carmen. Nice to see you, by the way.
Just before you go, let's just make sure there's nobody online with questions. No, okay.
The application before us is for the annexation of the property. We don't have any development proposals before us right now, so I can't tell you what is going to be developed. It would be rezoned, or it would have the city zoning designation of moderate density residential, which would allow a land division, for example. It could have single detached units. It could have middle housing, which we've all discussed quite a bit this evening already. And Barber Lynn Way is a public right-of-way that does dead end to this property. So any future development could certainly access the public right-of-way of Barber Lynn Way. But again, we don't have a development proposal, so I can't be specific to answer Carmen's questions about what's going to be built or how many cars or anything like that, because at this point, the landowner has not proposed a development proposal before us. So I can't answer your question right now, but certainly any future development proposal or land division would be reviewed against our code for compliance with all of our standards and development and design standards.
Can you clarify a little bit about when that application requires notice to neighbors and when it does not?
If the proposal to develop the property includes a land division of some kind, so any kind of land division into multiple lots, a land division would require public notice. So notice would be provided to properties within 300 feet of the property. So if there is, a land division of some kind. If a variance of some kind would be necessary as part of a development proposal, then public notice would be required. But if no land division is proposed and no variances are needed, then they could go straight to building permits, for example, unless whatever is proposed is determined by the engineering department to require a transportation impact study, then that process is a public notice type of land use application. But so there is some possibility for a public notice, but it's going to depend on what the landowner decides to do with the property for future development.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions for Vera? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move for the first and second reading by title only and adoption of the ordinance annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 22 E06B A00800 and located at 4920 Southeast Lake Road into the city limits of the city of Milwaukie. File number A-2025-001.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 22 E06BA 00800 and located at 4920 Southeast Lake Road into the city limits of the city of Milwaukie. File number A-2025-001. Ms. Sager, would you read the ordinance 2 times by title only? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Now, Ms. Sager, would you read the ordinance 2 times by title only?
Absolutely. An ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 22E06BA00800 and located at 4920 Southeast Lake Road into the city limits of the City of Milwaukie, file number A 2025-001. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 22E06BA00800 and located at 4920 Southeast Lake Road into the city limits of the City of Milwaukie, file number A 2025-001.
All right. Mr. Stopper, would you poll the council?
Council President Anderson.
Aye.
Council Coster-Body.
Aye.
Councilor Massey.
Aye.
Mayor Beatty. Motion carried 4-0, ordinance 2250.
Right. You don't have to read. Okay, now Vera has a really short one. Vera never has short ones, but okay. Today, she has 3 and 1 is short. Okay.
Let's make history, shall we? Be a short one. Okay. Before you is an ordinance asking for a code correction. When we have multiple code packages coming forward, sometimes they pass each other, and staff didn't update one of the ones that ended up going ahead. In any event, the table that is related to cottage cluster development was amended as part of our larger package of variance code amendments that allowed attached cottages. And then a subsequent code amendment package did not carry that amended table forward. So when that ordinance was adopted, that corrected language was not included and it was published without that new language. And we were advised by our code publisher that we needed an ordinance to go back to the originally corrected and adopted table. So I respectfully request that you adopt the ordinance that would bring back the code that allows for the
That was
attached cottages.
mistakenly deleted.
That's right.
Okay.
Mayor Beatty?
Yes.
If I may just interject too, I want to sincerely express appreciation to Vera for flagging this and bringing this to our attention. You know, a lot of codes changed and code happens, right? And we had a great conversation. I just want to be sure we contract with a vendor called General Code Publishing, and they publish our online code and the print versions of our code. And they were very receptive to talking to us. We had a very good discussion with Laura and Vera, and Nicole was there too. And confident that this is not something that's prone to happen again. It just happens when you do a lot of code updates. And so thank you, Vera, for leading us through this, and appreciate council considering the
And are
correction.
you saying then that you're happy with the service of the?
To be honest, I generally actually am. We were with a company called Quality Code Publishing for about 20 to 30 years. And then they were, the lead on that retired and General Code absorbed them. And so those sort of transitions can always be rocky. But it's been a smooth transition. I don't know if you've poked around our code online, but it's really user-friendly and fabulous for taking snippets and things. It's great for staff on the back end. We are in the middle of a request for proposals process because the contract with our codifier is up. So we are actually in the middle of a process to look at that code. And I appreciate Vera and Nicole for being on that team. But generally, yes, we've been very pleased with the response. I mean, Vera, I think you raised this the beginning of last week. And here we are with a code for ordinance for council to consider fixing it. So we've been very pleased with general code.
Okay. And where's our public comment? No. I will, if no one has any questions, I will entertain a motion.
I move for the first and second reading by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending the Milwaukie Municipal Code, Title 19 zoning ordinance for the purpose of correcting a publishing error related to attached cottages in a cottage cluster.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending Milwaukie Municipal Code Title 19 zoning ordinance for the purpose of correcting a publishing error related to attached cottages in a cottage cluster. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. None heard. It passes unanimously. Ms. Sager, would you read the ordinance 2 times by title only?
Absolutely. An ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending the Milwaukie Municipal Code Title 19 zoning ordinance for the purpose of correcting a publishing error related to attached cottages in a cottage cluster. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending the Milwaukie Municipal Code Title 19 zoning ordinance for the purpose of correcting a publishing error related to attached cottages in a cottage cluster.
Mr. Stoffer, would you please poll the council?
Council President Anderson,
Aye.
Councilor Cosrabati,
Aye.
Councilor Massey,
Aye.
Mayor Beatty.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0, ordinance 2251.
All right, 2 down. 2 down, 1 to go for Vera. Oh, and Laura's joining her this time, and Joseph, okay.
Let's go 3 for 3. Let's go.
I don't think this one will be quite so fast, but, pardon?
We're voting on it tonight?
Well, I mean, it's not code language. Yeah, it's not a hearing. But it's ongoing discussion on affordable housing code incentives. And yeah, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Continuing the discussion regarding affordable housing incentives. Do you want to read any of these? No. Okay, all right. So again, the purpose of these amendments, proposed amendments or this code language is to implement the housing production strategy, where we talked about using the code to be able to incentivize affordable housing development. It's a code-based approach to address housing supply and affordability. So we want to use our development and design standards as a way of incentivizing affordable housing development. And what we also wanted to do with this code amendment package was consolidate all of our incentives into one code section. So people aren't looking all over the code to try to find the incentives. This is our third work session with council to discuss this code package. Tonight's focus is on the questions that were raised at our last work session on March 18th. And our staff's goal anyway is to finalize this draft code so that we can begin the public hearing process with the Planning Commission and start with a work session with them in a few weeks. But we did want to talk a little bit, just a snapshot, and I'll ask Laura and Joseph to chime in at will, please. But in the last 5 years, we have had 2 affordable housing developments that have happened with our existing code. So these things, in fact, did happen. We have our 15-unit ownership cottage cluster development on Harvey Street. That's under construction right now. That is a home ownership development at 80% or below of AMI. And then, of course, we have Hillside Park. Phase 1 is under construction right now. Phase 2 is in the planning stages. Right now for phase 1, we have 275 units of rental housing, and those will be affordable at 30 to 60% AMI. And that was developed under a planned development process with our existing code. And again, phase 2 is in the planning stages right now, approximately another 225 units, and that will be a mix of rental and ownership development as part of that.
And we will have some amount of affordable housing in Coho. Yes.
Yes, correct. Probably near 20 units.
20 units.
Yep.
And then it's outside the 5 years, but we did have maybe 10 years ago, the Northwest Housing Alternatives,
The Walsh
28
Commons.
units, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to tout our existing code a little bit before we get into the incentives. Okay. So again, the proposed code, we're trying to incentivize affordable housing development for income qualified households by reducing minimum development and design standards. So the idea is to use the code that we have, so development and design standards, and help provide some incentives through kind of like a variance package of incentives that someone could use as part of an income restricted development. Joseph, I think it's yours.
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this in other meetings. I wanted to hit on a couple things as we move forward with the code package and talk about just some challenges. You can read up there, but essentially it comes down to what I will say, actually in the next slide, I think
talks about it best. Vera, if I can just pull that one up. I haven't done a good job of like just articulating my concerns when it comes to this code package, especially when it comes to home ownership. And so I'm going to try again tonight and hopefully it makes sense. But at the same time, that doesn't mean it's that we should go a different route or anything. I want to put on the record of what I know and what my experience has been with certain developments and tools that we use for keeping affordable units affordable. And so as Vera has shown already, we've had 2 developments in the last 5 years, Hillside being primarily all rental, and then Short Stack Milwaukie, which is for sale and ownership. Those both have entities which will, in perpetuity, continue to regulate those and monitor those units and make sure there's compliance happening year after year after year after year. That's great. City doesn't have to. All we have to do is just make sure they see their plans. They want to build income restricted units, verify the income restricted, the tool that they're using. Great, looks good. Go have fun monitoring buyers, sellers, renters, and making sure the price is correct every single year. When we move to incentive packages for ownership, especially when there's not CLT or any kind of similar type of entity that could help regulate, that burden will end up falling to the city. So when it comes, because the tool will likely be a deed restriction or a covenant used against that unit to keep it affordable for 60 to 99 years, whatever it is. And that covenant will be to our benefit because we will be the holders of that covenant. The city will. And so when a price changes or when a new seller wants to, or when a seller wants to sell their unit and they need a qualified buyer, that will fall to the city to verify over and over again. So those other parts would set maximum purchase price, verify qualified eligible buyers, approve buyer and purchase price, and continue to monitor and track and so forth and so forth. And the more units you have, obviously the more that happens. It becomes an administrative burden. And I only mention it because it maybe works now, but we don't have dedicated staff. If I leave, I don't know who will do it, and that will fall to somebody. So I just want to clear the air and put that out there. That's things that keep me up at night and things I think about when it comes to this. That's why I've kind of hoped for ownership kind of being attached to an entity and model or a nonprofit or somebody that would regulate it. So hopefully that helps articulate it a little bit better. Open to conversations. And then the next slide is essentially getting to, these are great tools for helping developers build more units or build and be flexible, but really what we've heard over and over again is money, money, money when it comes to incentivizing development, but certainly ownership units. And I'm done.
So why, do you want us to hold questions?
Yeah, let's get through it. And then if you wouldn't mind, Mayor, that'd be great.
Okay.
This slide represents a summary of the revisions that we made to the code based on the conversation that we had at the last work session. So we've added that in the DMU or in the downtown, that additional height bonus is available where 50% of the units are affordable at 60% of AMI. That reflects that conversation. So you can get that extra height, but we're going to tie that to a specific affordability space. We removed the maximum density limitation that was included in the code. We clarified the language around ground floor residential and non-residential active uses. We all agreed on it, but the language was weird. So we've clarified that, I hope, in the code that was included in your package. We clarified some of the language related to some of the other incentives. You pointed out some wonky words, so we tried to fix that. And then we revised the language around the continued affordability section, as we discussed, so that for home ownership units, that continued affordability is a 60-year timeframe, and for rental units, it's 99 years. And then there's that 25% reduction was proposed for that. Just a second.
What does that refer to?
Yeah, hold on. Oh, that's a holdover from a different slide. 25% reduction should not be in there.
Okay.
Forget you're even reading that.
What does that refer to? What are we reducing by 25%?
I was probably working on 2 other PowerPoints at the same time. So, I have too many screens, problem, I think. So yes, so that just is the summary of the changes that we made to the actual code language, reflecting that conversation that we had back on March 18th. And that was the last slide. So we're just wanting to open up the discussion so that, see if we can move this forward to the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Questions? Clarifications, comments? I know that the council president has some because he raised some with me. But okay, Councilor Kosherbati.
Just to clarify, can you go back to the incentive slide? Yeah, the height bonus where 50% of units are affordable, is that 50% of the additional units in the height bonus or the whole project? The whole building?
The whole project.
Yeah, okay, just wanted to make sure.
And this is maybe further clarification. What we had said is it is an additive bonus. So you can get multiple bonuses as opposed to just one. The height bonus is across. Yeah. Yep. Two things that I am kind of noodling on. One, Joseph, to your point about homeownership, I understand how this is like a challenging area. Like home ownership monitoring over a period of years, I think is a challenging thing. And I've been thinking, and I talked to the mayor a little bit about this, like how do we do, I would like to see more home ownership incentives in our code. I think that is really challenging to do unless it is at point of sale. But over a period of time, I think is much more challenging. And so I think as we think about like our affordability goal and other work going forward, are there other home ownership incentives that we can do? Is this something we can tie to SDC waivers or funds through CET? Is this something that we could have as an overlay zone? I've even been thinking, like, could you have this be a component of an SMU zone that we have, or some overlay around transit? Lord knows what it is, but I think I would be, I'll grant you this is not the spot for home ownership, but I'm not ready to give up on it as a point of sale tool and other code packages. That's point one. Point two that I kind of think of, I sent an email with a chart. I think one of the things that we had discussed was possibly tiering the benefits based on the like percent of units in the development. Scott, I sent over that email. Is it possible to pull that up, or is that included in the slideshow at all?
If I may.
Yeah.
I have it on a Post-it.
Okay.
That's all right.
But I think, Council President, you want the rest of your council to see
Yep.
it. So I think,
Just a
Scott,
visual.
are you able from your side to switch the screen?
I did, these are fake numbers, but I thought that we had discussed, right now our code says, or the code is presented would say 80% AMI, 50% of units. And we had kind of discussed in our last meeting that that would result in a lot of 80% AMI units. But if we want to go to some of those lower AMIs, it might be valuable to tier it down, where you could have a smaller percent of the total units and if it's a smaller AMI. And so just clarity here to either reaffirm or say this isn't the direction we want to go. Again, these are fake numbers, but saying something like,
Could you blow that up a little? I can't read that.
Can you send it to all?
I'm happy to look at it on this screen. I just would rather it be a little bigger.
Well, and if I remember correctly, we did have it at tiers in our second meeting. And then the conversation was to make it simple and go with the 50% at 80 AMI. And now we seem to have come full circle back to tiers.
this is where if we address it one more time, we can put it to bed or we can whatever it is.
Well, we did have tiers, but I felt like we had, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the package, but yeah.
Scott pulls this up. Yeah, Vera?
If I may, I think, so this would be in the applicability of all the incentives. So right now, we say that middle housing, multi-unit, mixed-use residential must be designed and constructed so that. And right now, it just says, 50% of the total number of units must be affordable for 80% AMI. And the proposal is to have that as in tiers so that 50% of the units must be affordable at 60 to 80% AMI, or at least 40% of the units must be affordable for 40 to 60% AMI. And so I think that's the tier. And I know your chart kind of has more to it, but I think the simplified way of saying it, I think, is at least 30% of the units must be affordable to 30 to 40% AMI. And then at least 20% of the units must be affordable to less than 30% of AMI. So you can provide fewer units if there's more affordability.
Deep affordability.
I think is the way that you've proposed
And I'm not
that,
sure
so.
in the nuance that you said, like it could be 50% of your units could be at less than 30% of AMI. I just think of it like at any point with the combination of percent of development and percent of AMI where it's in the green, the code would apply. I don't know if that's where we want to go, but I think that. No, just for the whole code package. I think that this would let us get more lower percent AMI. And I'll again say these numbers are not necessarily what we actually do, but curious how council feels about this approach to it.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, if your AMI, to get the incentives, the code incentives, you have to have 50% of if your AMI is 60 to 80%, 50% of it has to be, of the development has to fall within that to get the incentives. If you have, if you're developing 40 to 60%, then 40% of those, right? So that's basically what it is, right? It's a percentage is what's opening up the incentives. It's not just a flat.
Yep. So right now, the way I think about it, that first bar of 50% is everything that we've allowed right now in the code.
Right.
If anyone meets that 50% category with all those AMIs, you're allowed. And this would allow for that additional triangle of development.
How feasible is this for developers? Like, if I'm a developer, can I build it? If I do the lowest one, less than 30%, I mean, does the numbers compute out for?
Well, so there's another thing in the code that says, so I am remembering the tiering before, and the tiering before went above 80. That was my objection to it. It went to 120 or something.
Yeah, right.
I think I kind of like the tiering, but the code as drafted says the units have to be comparable to the other units in the development. So I don't know how realistic 30 to 40% of AMI is when they have to be comparable in size and finishes and all of that to other things but maybe at least a couple of tiers to incentivize something less than 80% of AMI. I mean, I like the idea of incentivizing lower AMI, but I don't know that we can retain that language about them having to be substantially similar units and expect that to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I would also say, Mayor, dispersing though would still make sense if we go tier route, making sure they're not all clumped in one part of the development.
Right.
Dispersing them throughout would make sense, but I agree at that low would be challenging. And it's all speculative at this point. You know, there's no developer in the room. But I think what they would say is, yeah, that would be challenging. But then you think of like 100-unit project, and you're talking 20 units at 30%. Yeah, that's challenging. That would be, I think, challenging to make.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I like it.
But to Council President, to your this concept idea is that it hits on, I think, the goal of the original intent, and basically 50% of a project being 80%. So this is not like they have to choose the lower tier. It gives them options. I can understand that. But I think the baseline is still a good one to have.
And I think I might say, the challenge is like, if you want to build 30% AMI units, right now we're saying 50% of your development has to be 30% AMI, which is even more challenging than just 20%. And I think it's that allowance. I want to clarify, maybe I'm not saying this correctly. To access the development or the code package, I'm saying if you do 20% of your units at less than 30% AMI, you're eligible for the code. Like the other 80% can be whatever. Okay.
But the other language in the code says they have to be similar in size, similar in.
It's going to be the cost is. I
don't see a downside to putting it in there. I don't imagine that we get it.
Yeah, I was just curious if it's feasible.
Yeah.
But I do like it because, like you said, Joseph, it gives us something to aim for. Because there's no point to reduce it to, like, if you just had two tiers, the 60 to 80 and the 40 to 60, right? It gives us something to aim for. but I do wonder how effective it'll be.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem to include it. Again, just reiterating, I don't know what we're going to get, but it doesn't hurt to include it.
Yeah.
But the baseline again is still 58 at 80. So
50,
that's,
yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, sold. Well, I don't know, Counselor.
You're in, you're out.
I'm not continuing this conversation because I'm going to go back to Joseph's original statement. And I don't think we need to be in the landlord business. It's not in our core competency. Anything is possible to the people who don't have to do it. Okay? Okay? And it's not in our core competency. It's mission creep. 10, 15 years from now, when the first, units start turning over, someone in this room is going to say, what did we agree to? How did we do this? How did we set this up? Well, it's not going to turn out well. So, this is all interesting, but my main point is that I just think that we should use another incentive without us getting into the landlord business.
I don't think this gets us into that though, does it? This is just to.
No, he's going to the ownership.
Oh, to the ownership as a code. Yeah.
He's going to the ownership thing. Well, I had a question about that because it seemed to me inherent in Joseph's statement was that there aren't enough land trusts to do it. I mean, could we do an home ownership incentive that was based on a land trust model?
Yes, Mayor. Actually, that's it's a good leading comment and question. That's exactly where I would say the code should, in my professional experience, I would say that's where the code should go, is that's how you get to ownership that makes sense for the city. From a code standard is, we offer that benefit to something that is, and we can even have some flexibility. It doesn't have to be a land trust. There's other equity models. We can say something like that, or you show us that you are doing the management monitoring of these units in perpetuity and not us.
Right.
I think
so. I liked
the key.
There's the bump for 100%, giving them the 10% extra. I kind of like just using that same thing for land trust or ownership, whatever models you think we should put in the language. But yeah, whatever language you think covers us so that we're not getting, I mean, I agree with Councilor Massey. We don't want our staff to have to monitor that, but I like giving a little bump for the land trust model. Yeah.
I think that sounds good. My one question with this is, I was talking to a local developer who works somewhere out of Axletree, and his name rhymes with Schmandy Schmischer. And I think one thing that he was saying about the challenge with a land trust is you have to create, if you're a developer trying to create homeownership opportunities, you have to create a nonprofit entity to do this. And so I'm just curious, other than, this is my own lack of knowledge, other than a nonprofit entity to supervise the land trust, is there a restrictive covenant that you can do to maintain affordability in home ownership? Are there other options that don't require creating some 501c3 to manage this, or what would that look like?
There are more options today than there were 20 years ago, for sure. But I don't even know all of the potential, but that's something that I would say I'll look into over the next iteration of this, is because I would add language saying community land trust. And I think there are other models, there are other equity models that I suggested earlier that would fit this. And then I would even suggest us keeping it open enough for something similar. So that language, something similar, so that we have some discretion there for what makes sense, because there might be other models that make sense. But when you talk about covenant, that's kind of what I was going back to, is when you have a developer who's not in the affordable housing business, so to speak, they will meet this requirement by creating deed restrictions against each of those units to the city's benefit. So the city will be the holder of that
so the city will
affordable
have
covenant.
to be verifying.
Yeah, and so that's what puts us in this. And I had a great conversation with Schmandy Schmishmir also today about a really interesting concept with him and another developer friend. And there are other things out there that could get us to this that aren't CLT with community land trusts. I fully acknowledge that. And I also acknowledge the fact that being here for 3.5 years and seeing how much the city does with so little, and then creating a code and walking away. I just wanted to have it on record tonight, regardless of where you all end up going. Because I would feel like it wouldn't be ethical on my side. So that's it.
I have a question. And some on here may not like me for this one. But the city of Seattle just did social housing. What exactly is that? And how could is that something that
like cooperative housing, or was it?
That's the thing.
City-owned
Social housing. The city of Seattle just passed social housing, and I'm trying to figure out like if you guys have heard how they're planning on doing that, because I'm sure that's going to have to do with social housing. Typically deals with ownership.
I think there are some discussions at the legislature and with Rep. Gamba. I don't think that stuff is moving this year, but I think we will see that discussion coming in the years ahead.
Is that connected with like the rooming houses or boarding houses? Kind of similar, that conversation? Is that not part of this?
It's an excess compensation tax.
It's like Vienna. It's like
Singapore. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, and that's why I'm curious, because if Seattle is planning on doing that, maybe there's something in there that already stipulates how to do the home ownership in code.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe we wait and see what Seattle does, or maybe we reach out to them and ask them how they plan to do this lift. And see what it looks like.
Usually social housing, correct me if I'm wrong, smarter than me planners, but usually social housing means the public entity is building it and then has like a housing authority or related wing that operates it. So in our case, probably the closest thing we would have to social housing in the city would be Hillside and the housing authority development there.
And Councilor Sarvati, to your point, I think if we think about what government-supported housing looks like in Milwaukee, I think if we were to say right now, put in our code social housing, I think our planners might say, well, that's going to be a little challenging. And to Councilor Massey's point, there's some element of like mission creep. I think that there's like, the mission is where we want to direct it. And I think that in the long term, we want to see the city get more into the housing space. There are things that we can do. I think about our work on land banking, if we do that in affordability, like that is a step we can take towards the city. If the city is a housing or a landowner, we go one step closer to be a developer in our own right and a homeowner and like maintainer in the future. And so I think that there are small steps that we can take now. I think some of it might take state action, and some of it honestly is the expertise of big cities who are doing really complex things with giant staff who can do think tanks around what that looks like. But I think it's an admirable direction to walk in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just look at it like, maybe they know something we don't. Because that's the idea of social housing too, is that the people own right? Like Singapore, 99% of the people that are in social housing own, or 99% of the people are homeowners in Singapore, some crazy number like that, 90%, something like that. So I'm just curious if maybe they cracked that, no pun intended, that code, right? So,
I'm happy to look into that.
Yeah, just just curious if that might have an answer.
Yeah, I do know that Rep. Gamba is talking, he went to Singapore or Indonesia or somewhere. And I mean, yeah, there are people at the state level definitely studying that, but yeah, I think it's not ready for prime time yet, but other question, I have a list of kind of questions. If nobody else has them, I'm going to go ahead. I did a printout. So in the new code, subsection 511A5, income restricted units must be reasonably dispersed. And so you chose to use same number of bedrooms, and I was just curious about using number of bedrooms versus square footage, why you opted for bedrooms.
Generally because bedroom count can help create more family housing. Square footage doesn't mean that there are more bedrooms. It just means they're bigger.
Yeah.
And bedrooms are a way of making sure that on average that the affordable units have, if you're building 3-bedroom units at market rate, you're building 3-bedroom units of affordable units as well. So, yeah.
Okay. And then at the bottom of the page, I was a little unclear about the, so 1B, minimum front, Brian, the setbacks, 50% reduction for middle housing except cottage clusters. Can you explain that? That's at the very bottom of RS 130, or next, it's B, it's not C, so it's not the very bottom.
Cottage clusters already by statute and within our code have very small setbacks already. The side and rear setbacks for cottage clusters are 5 feet. So they're already really tight deliberately. That's your pros and cons of cottage cluster. You know, you get smaller setbacks, but you also have smaller units and all the other things that go with it. And so given that they're already built kind of maxed out on the size of those yards, that seemed plenty, frankly, of incentive within our existing code for cottage clusters. But happy to discuss, but that's the rationale behind it.
Okay. And then on the, so I guess I wanted to understand, because we've got that, and then we've got maximum lot coverage. I guess I'm trying to get to what's the minimum percentage that's going to be non-paved? What's the minimum percentage of green space we're ending up with this?
The challenge there is that it depends on the size of the lot that you start with, right? So because we have lot sizes from as small as 3,000 square feet, you know, for plexes and so on. Well, 7,000 for cottage clusters, but the variation is wide. So I had some of the sort of examples from the last presentation that talked about, you know, well, if then your Jello mold gets bigger. I mean, there are still yards, you know, there's still all these things, but it's a lot less. I mean, I think that's sort of the best way to describe it, but I think we still have some of those images from the last presentation to show you as just graphic representations, but I don't know that I can tell you that because there are too many variables for the size of the lot that you start with and how big the units are that they're building. But I had some examples, but maybe that wasn't helpful enough.
I mean, this question has come up to me anew in light of, you know, some of the letter writing campaign we've seen about, and I think the comments we got from Ronell Coburn about 29th Avenue. I do feel like I'm concerned about 29th and about some kind of frontage improvements because we have so little. I mean, if you go drive by Short Stack, man, there's very little space there, and we've got to keep people from, if we're not requiring parking on site, we've also got to make sure people aren't just treating what little green space there is as a parking lot. They're not driving up and parking on the grass. So I am concerned about frontage improvements on some of these, you know, less improved streets. But anyway, okay. Well, I take your point though, that, you know, it's so dependent on the lot and the configuration. The other question I had was, I just want to make sure I understood. So if they meet these standards to get these incentives, we're requiring less bike parking. They would have to do one per, so this is on 131. G is the bike parking. Minimum number of spaces is 0.5 per dwelling unit, and they would otherwise have to do 1 per dwelling unit. Okay, got it. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, looks like Emma.
Well, I just have, back from before, there were a couple points where I'm not sure if we got consensus on how to move forward. So to Council President Anderson's tiered proposal, I heard firmly from the mayor and council president, they were supportive of that. I just want to know if we've got, if
there's consensus.
Yeah, I'm supportive of it. I don't see a problem.
Microphone.
Sort of a qualified yes. I just go back to my original point about the ownership code. I'm just I don't know how closely those are tied.
Yeah, I don't think that.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's separate from the 10-year
I just want to make
issue.
sure there's no unintended consequences
Sure.
of me saying yay, barely, I approve.
Yes. Okay. So we've got clarity on the tiering. And then the second was, Mayor, I heard you say that you liked the idea of giving a bump for land trusts or similar, but I guess I didn't quite track what that bump referred to and if others were on board with that. So is there a bonus that we're talking about? Maybe Vera, you're tracking that.
If I understood you correctly, Mayor, so that we have a paragraph that talks about if your development has that 100% of the units are affordable at 80% or below, then the incentives are increased by an additional 10 percentage points across the incentives. So what I think I heard you say was that, and I think this, thank you for bringing it up, Emma, is that a similar paragraph of some kind is if it's an ownership development, and we can talk about land trust model or seminal, blah, blah, blah. Are you suggesting that that same 10 percentage bump?
Right, and if it's 50%, or if it meets our chart, if we're going to use that new chart, then they get that same 10%.
So if 100% of the units are affordable?
No, if 50% are affordable at that tiered whatever, 50% are affordable at 80%, and it's an ownership model.
Gotcha.
They get a 10% bump.
So okay, but it could be 40% at 40% AMI. Okay, so you're a qualified development and you're an ownership unit, you get 10 percentage point bump for being an ownership development. Got it. Okay.
Again, I don't know that we'll see it, but it's worth putting out there, I feel like.
So do we have, what's our thoughts on that? Do we have consensus on an ownership 10% bump?
Yeah, I like that. You know, I'm not, like the mayor said, I'm not sure what we'll get out of it, but it's nice to have that there because it could lead to something.
Yeah, I think good here. One thing I'd say is like, this is an area, there are a few moments in our code where we're kind of like, well, we'll see what happens. To like keep track of these, to come back with a code update in 2 years or something and say, this is being used, this isn't, because we're trying to build a code that will be used. So.
I think too, I just want to put some rails on that just because we've only had 2 affordable housing developments in the last 5 years. So I don't want to have really high expectations that all of a sudden we're going to get a bunch of development. If we did, that would be amazing. I'd be very happy. But I just want to kind of keep expectations a little bit in check, but we will report back. And if we hear from developers, this doesn't make any sense, or why did you do it this way? Maybe there's another opportunity to share some information out. And if we need to make any adjustments, we can.
I think one thing we'll have our affordability goal kickoff next month, but one thing we are doing, but we can start pulling together in a consolidated report is for those affordable developments, and we hope we see an uptick in them, being clear, what did this take advantage of? Did it take advantage of CET? Did it take advantage of an SDC waiver? Did it take advantage of a code incentive? And kind of telling that story, that I think will help us, in addition to your broader point of monitoring, is our code serving us or not? But I think that there's a lot of levers right now we've got to play in our housing production strategy. So tracking all of the things that are contributing to affordable units, I think is important.
Okay. So it sounds like you have a package to give to the Planning Commission. And I do think, to that point, obviously, once it's done, which is another few months, but how do we promote it? Do we mail it to do we send a press release to all the affordable housing producers or what? So, yeah.
I kind of related to this, and it's something I'll talk about in my report, but I'm curious, like when you sit down with someone coming in for a pre-app or something, how you market something like this, or how you touch base, something in the middle housing that people mentioned is like, there are a lot of lots around us that would likely be caught up in middle housing. To ask the developers, are you planning on developing any other properties nearby? Or I guess the larger ask is it might be helpful the more we dig into the planning process. Maybe this is just a me thing because I haven't sat on planning commission, but understanding what knowledge or insights you bring to those pre-app conferences, how you're advocating for our code and these different things would be super helpful.
I was just going to say our city manager can also speak to her experience too, to get when we do have that conversation.
Yeah, it's funny.
Undercover boss.
Undercover boss, totally. No, today we were talking about kind of scheming around this public meeting around middle housing and sort of what I think will be helpful to like educate folks on. There's obviously the broader policy context, but I think there's a lot of just like, what does the day in the life of a Vera Coleus look like? And I truly, like, I did love my pre-app meeting. I got to see how the sausage gets made and how you've got staff sitting around the table who all represent and defend different pieces of our code and look at a private development through that lens. So I was singing your praises.
Okay, do you need anything else from us? You think you've got clarity? Okay. Yep, thank you. All right, folks, do you want a break before we go on? Plow forward?
Plow forward.
I mean, I'm guessing we're 45 minutes away.
All right.
You want a break?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break, come back at 10 till.
Legislative.
Speak it with.
All right, we are back on the air. And up next is our Finance Director, Michael Osborne, to present the consolidated fee schedule.
Thank you. Who's ready to talk fee schedule? I am. It's an exciting topic at 9:00 at night. I am here to discuss the FY26 consolidated fee schedule. This would be for the fee schedule beginning July 1, 2025. Just so we're all clear, this is the middle of the biennium year, so it's an off-budget year. And this is just us revising the fee schedule, making adjustments for fiscal year 26. For preparation for this, we sent out the fee schedule to all departments in late March for 2025. We gave them about 3 to 4 weeks to go through, review, make edits. And then at the end of April, myself and Matt kind of went through it to look to make sure we're capturing all costs, to kind of justify what big increases there are, what's the explanation for that, and just kind of do a solid review and formatting of the document. This is a draft fee schedule for your input, comments, and questions. Just be advised that solid waste fees, those are going to be discussed in a separate meeting on May 20th, that we're going to have Chris Bell come out, and he is our solid waste expert and consultant, and he can talk more about the solid waste piece of the consolidated fees. Also, too, we have a couple upcoming revenue proposals that we've talked to you a little bit in meetings. We are going to, Emma and I are going to present that to you all in Budget Committee together on Monday, May 12th in that meeting. So those revenue proposals we're not going to discuss tonight, and these are just the things from previous established fees. With that, any questions, or do you want to start? Can we get started? Okay. So my idea was just kind of, we can go through the document a little bit, one page by page, and I can kind of highlight any changes that were made. And then if you have questions at the end, let me know and I can answer them. So first, this is just a mission statement on fees. This is an annual document of all the city fees and charges that have been adopted by council, and it's updated annually. There is an option for a fee variance or waiver, it notes on this page. This is at city manager's discretion and must be put in writing. All reductions or waivers must be in writing and communicated to council for comment, with exception to small matters as defined as $1,000 or less.
Go ahead.
Michael, as you go through this document, could you read us the RS number at the bottom of the page you're on, just because that's kind of hard for us to read, so we can follow along?
I don't have it up in front of me. I'm reading off the same document that you are.
Oh, you can't see it?
It's not on my computer screen here.
Okay.
I'm reading off here.
Oh, if Scott moves the little blurby thing, the captions, then it probably
But I-
would.
I'm not sure, Scott, if this is the one that Michael sent you, it doesn't have the RS numbering.
Oh, okay.
I can try to, I'll pull up the packet and I'll try to cross-reference for us.
Okay.
That was RS 138, I think, right? Oh, billable hourly rates is 140.
So starting with administration, this is the question kind of I get asked sometimes, and I wanted to highlight it here, that city employees are billable at a 2.5 times their rate and their rate is calculated as a step 4 of their employee job classification. So when we have requests for public works, code enforcement, or police department to come out to an event, to a special event or something like that, we are billing for their time at 2.5 times their salary to recoup the cost. That's come up a couple times with Milwaukee Days events and things like that. So I just wanted to highlight the methodology behind that. All right, so we're starting with the building department. And we can go through kind of their changes, but there was no changes for fiscal year 26. The rate stayed the same as in fiscal year 25. This is due to kind of the health of the building fund. It's a very healthy fund at the time. And with the current economic climate, we didn't see fit as in raising building fees at the moment. So we kind of kept these all the same. There's a lot to them, but no changes to highlight. Moving down through the building section, we're going to get to the business registration fees.
This is RS 149.
Thank you. Again, we have no changes for fiscal year 26. We've highlighted to keep them the same as fiscal year 25. The reasons for that is the business registration has outperformed the budget projections for fiscal year 25. So it's ahead of what we had budgeted for last year. Another reason is we kind of did a stock of just the local regions around here, Oregon City, Gladstone, Lake Oswego. And tend to be on the higher side of what business registrations are. So this is something that in the next 2 years, we want to look at and do a deep dive in and look at the code. But for right now, since we're outperforming budget, we just wanted to keep it the same. Next up is parking. And we did a change last year to reduce for, sorry, I'm spacing here. I think it was for monthly parking.
We reduced the quarterly rate.
We reduced the quarterly rate down to 150. And with that, we eliminated the 10% bulk discount rate. We're hoping that people can go online and purchase these on a quarterly basis themselves. There's an online tool to do that. So we kept the rates the same for 25 to 26, no major increases. I will note that we've seen an uptick in parking permits issued because of the reduction that we did at the end of last year. And this is the highest point that we've had since COVID. So it seems like there are a lot of people buying permits, and the reduction translated into a little extra income than we've had budgeted in previous months.
And on this page, which is RS50, there are 2 footnotes, but there's only one of them actually has a number above.
Correct. The second one I've taken out in the updated version. In the one I sent in your packet, there was, and that was related to the bulk rate discount. So I've eliminated that.
I'll just share just a fun piece of news. Joseph and I had a great talk today with the parking kitty folks and learned a lot. So that was intriguing. And for, not for this year, but for future conversations, we will, that's a program we might be able to explore for paid parking.
I have a quick question. How often do you see people buy the monthly permit?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I know that it's gone more to quarterly because of the cost difference. And that's what we're trying to do, is get people to buy more on the quarterly because it's less administration, less coming up to the front desk to buy on a monthly basis. Just come up on a quarterly basis and buy at once.
So Scott runs us a quarterly report because his team is who really issues the parking permits. The most recent one was April 18th. We had 72 active permits and all of them were quarterly. We had no monthly permits at that time.
And when we say quarterly, is it just a quarter from when you buy it, or is it?
It's usually April 1st to
April 1st
June 30th, and then the next session will be July 1st.
So if somebody buys in the middle of the quarter, do you prorate it? Or it just stays the same price?
They just buy a monthly.
They buy a monthly.
Oh, they buy, oh, so you can't, so you only sell it during that time. Okay.
Next, starting with the big changes in fees was engineering. They did a really good job of doing a thorough review of what their rates were. They did a complex spreadsheet through and evaluated different cities in the region. They compared to Portland, Oregon City, Tualatin, Gresham, and Wilsonville, and really tried to find where we fit into the region on their some of their engineering fees. And the big ones that they were looking at were attributable to parking. And from looking at other rates in the cities, they decided that we were too low and had to increase it. And so they're projecting a 60% increase to it, which seems like a lot, but again, compared to other cities, they're saying it's reasonable. The other reason that they were looking at is, for example, the development to the south of us for the food cart lots. The developers there are buying passes, specific parking passes for that specific section. So in the past, it was a $55 fee to get a parking pass to close down a section near the work site. And that's pretty comparable to what it was for a parking pass. So what they wanted to do is, because you're taking out 4 specific sites that could be used for other businesses in the region or in the area like Windhorse, they wanted to increase that fee so that as you're taking those parking offline in this area, you're compensating for that parking use.
So why isn't it the same? Why isn't it this $100 then? I mean, why? I mean, first off, I think it's a big jump, 55 to 90. But if that's the rationale,
well, so
then why isn't it the same cost as a monthly parking pass?
It's the same cost as a quarterly parking pass. So we looked at it like it's $150 for the quarter, and we're looking at that cost comparison to $50 to that. When I said it was the 55 was close to the 50.
I thought it's going to go to 90.
It's going to go to 90.
Correct. It was at 55. So maybe I should back up here a little bit. So when I'm comparing 50 to 55, I'm saying the quarterly parking pass, if we're going on a monthly basis, that's where you get the $50 from. So if they went and bought a quarterly pass, it'd be the 50. In the past, if you're buying this specific spot that's outside of this area, it would only be $5 more to say, hey, I'm taking this specific spot in this region. What engineering is saying is, if you're going to take that specific spot and take away less parking in this North District, that there's an added 90 or an added economic cost to that they've evaluated to raise it to $90. Because we have less parking in this area.
So, I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by taking a parking place if you don't mean a parklet. I mean, I know parklet is where my mind goes with that. Mm-hmm. And when the parklet system was set up, it was intended that the cost of each parking place taken up by the parklet would be the same as a monthly parking pass. That was the underlying rationale of the parklet program. Mm-hmm. So that, yeah, the city's getting compensated for the lost parking for the other businesses and everything else. And the city's getting the same compensation it would get for a monthly parking pass.
And I do believe, Mayor, on RS 155, our parklet fee is still done that way.
Correct.
$150 a quarter, which matches what a quarterly parking pass is. So I take your point. I think what you're saying, Mayor, is why wouldn't the parking closure downtown be $100? because that would be what a monthly parking pass would cost.
I mean, my initial reaction was,
too
that's a
big.
big jump. That's a big jump. Everything else is jumping by $25 and that one's jumping by $35, I guess. But if the rationale is making us whole, then why isn't it the same as a monthly parking pass?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, we're replacing, what we used to call this a parking variance. Now it's, it's basically like dedicating right of way. I think it's a policy question for you all. Would you rather we make it the $100 for the methodological reason of matching the parking rate? Or if $45 was already too big of a jump, does $55 feel even bigger and unpalatable? I think,
What are we talking about? I don't know what the food cart people are doing. Are we talking about a construction crew and it's just going to be a few months? Or are we talking about some ongoing thing?
No, it's for shutting down a space for construction, storage, filming sometimes, those kinds of, I really need this, not just a spot, I need this spot outside of this business for this use. I got to close this part of right of way, this parking for.
And so whatever the number is, say this year's number 55, it's that year if you close it all year long or you close it for a week?
This is per month, per
Temporary
space.
street use. Oh, per month.
And I'm
per
looking, I
space.
guess, at the parking closure downtown. I think a temporary street use is not parking right of way, it's street area right of way.
Okay. I mean, I don't feel strongly about any of this. It just, yeah. And it's not clear to me, like, really what this is vis-a-vis. I didn't even pick up that Parklet was on
a different
page.
Parklet's down.
Oh, it's down
later.
at the bottom. Yeah. Okay. I thought this was referring to Parklet. Well, I mean, I don't feel strongly about that. I'm okay with it the way it is. It does seem like kind of a big jump comparatively to the other increases in this section, but.
I also wanted to point out too that we had updates in fees for materials, plans, and maps. And these are usually $5 to $10 changes just for cost of inflation, just bringing the cost up to kind of go current again with what other cities are doing and kind of bringing it up for recouping costs.
We're on RS 152.
We also, let me scroll to this, updated language here for permit review. For permit review fees to define that the fees are for one plan year, one initial inspection, and one final inspection, including 12 months of routine inspections from the effective date of the initial approval. So I think it's kind of just defining that you get a full year of permit reviews from the date of the initial permit approval. So I think that's just cleanup language. And then scrolling down to here it is on the parklets. And the change that we made for this was adding a quarterly $150 fee. And this is to match the $150 quarterly fee that we have for parking. This was for administration purposes. So as people were paying for parklets, instead of paying monthly, they can pay quarterly. For FELOC, this was reviewed by engineering as well, and they had a small increase, and this is just for CPI, cost of living index. Now on to library. The library is proposing in this the removal of overdue fine fees. Brent included a memo with the packet that he sent to all of you for kind of the rationale behind it. I wanted to note that in the last budget, we reduced fines that we were looking at down to $5,000. So we haven't been budgeting much for this. So it wouldn't be a dramatic income reduction to us because it hasn't been budgeted. The fines would be replaced with a cost called replacement cost for the value of the book. So if somebody lost the book, I'm not sure what the period of time would be, but after a week or 2 weeks, I don't want to speculate, but we would then charge the person for the cost of the replacement of the book.
Too bad this isn't in effect yet because I have an overdue book.
So as of July 1. Any questions with that?
Yeah, that's right. I'll just hold on to it.
No one has any questions and Brent stayed the whole time. Thank you, Brent.
With miscellaneous fees, the only change to this was lien docket searches. We updated that $5 just to recoup our cost. Everything else on the fees and charges there are the
Who
same.
does a lien docket search?
What's that?
Who performs a lien docket
Judy.
search? Judy, okay.
Yeah. Municipal court, the only increases that we had in this were for audio recording fee and trial cancellation fees. I believe those were it's $15 increase for audio recordings and $5 for a trial cancellation fee. Again, I think this is just updating for recouping our costs. Parking fines and traffic fines, I think those are all in the code and not subject to change. For planning, they had 2 small changes.
RS 161.
Here is one for annexations. This
RS
is just
162. You're just going so fast.
Sorry. Annexations, we had in the past, it was just $150 flat fee. Now we've broken it out by size of parcel. This is more in line with Metro, where these changes came from. I don't know how much of this applies to our city, but we just wanted to be up to date with Metro standards.
Oh, the changing by size of acreage? Is that it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And we also are requiring now a $300 deposit for appeal of middle housing and land division, which is something we haven't done in the past.
And this one, just since it's topical and timely, because as I mentioned in my comments earlier, state statute says if we do get an appeal on middle housing land division, we have to hire an external referee. And if we weren't charging anything, that was all coming out of the city's pocket.
Who are you hiring, a mediator?
That's a Justin question. Who is the external referee?
They vary. It's usually an attorney. It's, we use a planning commission for our land use decisions, but other jurisdictions sometimes use a hearing officer. So somebody like that would be an independent third body who could sit. And for that particular review, the grounds for the appeal are super duper narrow. It's got to be unconstitutional or it's got to violate a substantive right that the appellant has. I mean, it's pretty narrow. And I think for timing, I think the appeal has to be decided within 45 days from the appointment. So it's a quick process. So I think I'd be able to find somebody pretty quick who could do it.
I just noticed I didn't have my microphone on, so hopefully you all could have heard me. Sorry to anybody listening. Moving on to trees in the city. We didn't add any increase for 25, 26. We came, Public Works kept these at the same. They did add one programmatic permit application fee. And Peter has come up with a one-page explanation for this. I can pass along to you if you're interested. But from my interpretation, this is if PGE or a school district or somebody with a large area with a lot of trees wants to come in and come up with a systematic plan on how to trim them or keep them up, they can apply for this application fee and kind of work with the city on working together on what's the best strategic way to do this.
I thought we already had that for PGE, but maybe they're expanding it to more. Yeah, interesting. I remember talking about that a couple of years ago. Okay.
Yeah. Down to police.
Actually, real quick, Michael, if you could, sorry, if you could, just to bring this up, and I'm not saying this is the time to discuss it, but I think we're going to. We've had a lot of correspondence in regards to our tree code and the tree fees. Considering that it's like we're like some of the highest. Also, there's been some, I've heard from constituents about issues of our tree code, where that one free tree per year that they can cut down as long as it meets criteria, it's a lot of people get denied that. I've heard from a tree company, a tree service organization, that every time they submitted a permit, they get denied. And that extra $1,200 or whatever the extra fee is for the type B has been detrimental to a lot of homeowners who are trying to cut trees on top of what the cost is already to cut the tree. I had a constituent specifically reach out and say that they have a non-native tree that's Austrian pine, I think, that has uprooted their concrete driveway already, and that they have already planted 4 additional trees on their property, and they were denied that initial free tree. And they mentioned that there is, because of where the tree is, because it uprooted their concrete, there's what they're trying to do is remove the tree to prevent it from penetrating their sewer lines. But based on the result from the city, they determined that they needed proof that it was already damaging the sewer lines. So the question that I think we need to really look into on this tree code is what about preventative maintenance stuff, right? So if your concrete's torn up, that's a cost for the homeowner. That's an additional cost for the homeowner to fix that. You know, if I have a tree overhanging my house that could potentially, because of the severe windstorms that we've had and severe weather storms we've had, could fall and damage my house, is that going to be denied? So where are we drawing the line from preventative and then already been damaged? Because I think that's something we have to look at. Because if we're not allowing homeowners to do preventative maintenance on their trees, that could potentially cost them more money in the future, or the city more money in the future. I think that's something we have to go back and look at, because that's, you know, that, and the fact that I'm hoping that we're not arbitrarily deciding which trees are allowed to be cut and which aren't. I'm really hoping we're relying on code.
I mean, I guess if you would like us to put something on the agenda, that's not really a fee schedule thing, but we can put something on the agenda for a future meeting to, you know, go through sort of what are the complaints. I will say, I mean, we did recently get a letter about how our fees were outrageous and out of line, but we haven't gotten much. I've been actually surprised we haven't heard from more people about the amount of our fees. But anyway, I'm happy to, talk with Emma about getting that on a future agenda. But
I mean, it does have to do with the fee too, because the other complaint was, okay, if I go through type B, I'm already paying X amount for the tree removal. Now I got to spend an extra, in this constituent's case, an extra $1,200 on top of that for the permit.
Because of the size of the tree? I mean, $1,200 is a lot.
Because of the size of the tree, right. But that's the thing. I mean, you're going to get that. That's going to differentiate throughout. And I just want to make sure that it's not overreach, right? I just want to make sure that we're not preventing people from maintaining things because of the cost. And that's the thing. The preventative piece relates exactly to the fees, because if homeowners aren't allowed to do preventative maintenance, and they have to wait till damage is done, so now they have to pay for replacing the damage done, and they have to pay the extra additional fee for that, right? So that's where it's like, there has to be some sort of a middle ground to allow homeowners to still be able to maintain their properties for preventative maintenance, without having almost $1,200 associated with it. That's a pretty hefty cost.
Well, so again, I'd be happy to, to support putting that on the agenda and having Courtney come in and talk to us, Courtney and Peter come in and talk to us about some of those cases.
Absolutely, we can get that scheduled. Counselor Kosarabadi has sent me that correspondence, and so I'll also be just following up on this specific incident, getting a little bit more info, but I think it's a good conversation to have. I also have some sad news to share, which is that we're losing Courtney to the city of Portland.
Oh, really?
This is her last week, so we will be without an urban forester for a little bit, but the tree code lives on, so we'll still get this scheduled and get the new urban forester as part of that conversation.
All right, moving on to police. They didn't, all their, all their fees were the same. From 25 to 26, no changes for them. SDCs. So for the SDCs, all of the increases were based on the CCI increase, which is 5.64%.
Michael, as you're going through these SDCs, some of them noted who the governing body is for the SDC. Can you just say explicitly to us, if we're the governing body that determines that SDC, that might be helpful. That was, as I was reviewing this earlier, a question I had.
Well, and I have a similar question when it came to wastewater, because we know some of the wastewater is west and some of it is west. So, yeah.
Council President, are you asking us to clarify as we walk through right now, or in the fee schedule in general, or both?
I was saying for myself as you go through,
Okay. But probably for clarity, also good to talk about who sets them in the fee
might be
schedule.
valuable.
Okay.
For all the other people who read our code.
You know it.
So for water, the increase again is 5.64%. And I just wanted to point out that down here on the second page that there is a scalable option for 2026 with that 5.64% increase.
Water SDCs are set by us.
Yes.
So someone can choose to do the meter size versus the scalable, or?
I think that the meter size is the base rate that sets the rate. And then based on that base rate, it's then taken into a ratio of, based on the size, how that determines for a different single-family residence per square feet.
Okay. Oh, yeah, because I guess residential other than multifamily is all probably the smallest, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So they're paying both. They're paying the
single family?
Yeah.
They're paying based on where they fall in the house size.
And not by meter size.
I think the meter size is the base rate that influences the scalable size. Sorry, I'm trying to do the math here real quick. Because here at a 1.0 is kind of the standard of 1,800 to 3,000 square feet. And max water SDC is 5603. And then if,
I think we're going to have to
Yeah, I'll
circle
come
back
back
on
to
that
this.
one.
Yeah, I
Providing
think
I
so
was
too.
trying to correlate it up here, but I don't see how it does. I can come back to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to know, or is somebody paying both by meter size plus by house size? Or are all the house sizes considered this, are necessarily the smallest meter size? And so they're paying on that. And then to Council President's question about who's SDC when you get to wastewater, that's where I would.
Did Peter clarify that for you? Is it all Wes or is it a portion of Wes and a portion of ours?
He didn't clarify for that, but I'm assuming it's Wes.
We'll follow up on that one too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with the wastewater, we also have a scalable sliding scale based on single-family resident.
Yeah, that's what I was confused about because there's I thought Wes had also gone to sliding scale based on unit size. So I was surprised to see these charts at the bottom of RS 174 and the top of RS 175 that don't go by unit size. And I was trying to understand which apply to our SDC for the pipe infrastructure versus Wes's SDC for the, treatment infrastructure. And I guess, yeah, I would like more clarity on that.
So I think like for this one here, the single-family dwelling, the total cost is $1,243.15. When you go down to the sliding scale here, you see at par here, 1,800 to 3,000 square feet. That correlates to the 1,243.15.
Okay.
So it's just taking, when you're doing the sliding scale, it's just taking it based on the EDUs or down to the square foot size and doing it on a ratio of what that would be, what the cost would be.
So
Okay.
I think if I'm getting it right, the table above is how we've calculated the SDCs. But then when you find out which SDC is going to apply to a development, it is then done by that sliding scale.
Correct.
So we got that par level based on the table above, but then we're setting the SDC based on the size of the development, I think.
So if you're a dwelling or a duplex, you'd be going based off this space fee. Commercial businesses are down in the other. But for the single family dwelling, we're not categorizing it all as one. We're going based off square feet. And then that's where you come down to this house size and where do you fall into that? And the base is 1.0, which is what they're charging up here. So this just kind of gives the base setting up here, and then this is the breakout below.
Well, that makes sense, except when you look at ADU, where the numbers don't match. The ADU in that lower chart is,
So that's 0.6.
But up above, we say ADU is 808.
They're basing it down here based on the single family dwelling. And I see what you're saying. So based on.
Yeah, I think we're just going to need to follow up on this one with some clarity from.
And is this consolidated? Is this both our SDC and Wes's SDC?
Yeah, we'll follow
I guess I thought Wes's was higher, but maybe it's both.
And sorry, Michael, really quickly, even though it says in bold, single-family residential, you're saying this is all housing types that fall into the other category right now?
Say that again?
You were saying that for single-family, duplex, and ADU, they use those reimbursements above, but then for other, you use the chart down below based on house size. So a fourplex would use that square footage in the table below.
Yeah, I think we need to clarify because you're right, Counselor. And I don't know why duplex is called out separately. So I just need the Public Works and Engineering folks to provide answers to this, and we'll send it around to all of council.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it could be. Okay.
Going down to stormwater. So this is where Peter explained to me. We're basing stormwater fee SDCs on the standard rate of single-family household for 2,706 square feet of impervious surface. So for the single-family lot, if we went through and did a new impervious surface calculation and there's a new development and it comes up to be like 1.5% bigger than this, say 4,000 square feet, then we would charge 1.5 times of the single family property rate. This is kind of the, I guess for 2025, this is kind of the base methodology for it, but it all comes back to this 2,706 square foot in how we calculate for single family properties.
If a property is smaller then, or has less?
We would do it based on the rationale. So if they were at 1,300 square feet, we charge them 50% of that fee. So we're doing the methodology behind the stormwater for SDC charges is, this is kind of par for average for a normal single family resident house of 2,706 square feet. So if somebody was redeveloping or we were trying to make a change to it, we would go in, look at their impervious surface, calculate their impervious surface after the change. And if it's less or more, then we would change the SDC fees based on that cost. I apologize, I'm horrible at looking at these SDC fees. I can follow up with Peter and have him kind of
Yeah, I guess because
send out a better explanation.
I read this text and it implies that we're just treating them all the same, which I guess I thought we were. I just thought we were defaulting to this is, and it's not 2,706 just of house footprint, it's impervious surface. So it's
yeah.
including the driveways, the, blah, blah, blah.
Can I ask such a naive question? Like, as we struggle with these SDCs in the way this fee schedule is written, how has this not come up for past iterations people are applying, especially for developers who want to pay as low as possible on SDCs?
I think that the SDC methodology is probably a lot more solid than I'm explaining it in this. So I think if we had somebody.
I mean, that is in some ways my comfort. Like, as much
Yes.
as we're laboring over this,
No,
the
it's-
fact that it has not blown up is like,
It'd be, so engineering and public works assess SDCs every time we get a development application. Let's go back to undercover boss. When I submitted my plans, I sat in a pre-app meeting and they told me what my estimated SDCs would be based on the plans I submitted. And I'm waiting for my final bill to come due. But that, and when they do that, they explain the way that it was all calculated. I do think this is no slight on you, Mike, but I think that we'll have our engineering and public works staff explain further. And I think this actually, though, really great. I mean, I think this gives us an opportunity to just clean up the clarity of the fee schedule so that we don't have to kind of do this. What does it mean?
I think this is best described by a couple of use cases.
Yeah.
Actually, and I was reading, this whole thing here in these charts about lots and, what's a lot? Some things are lot, some things are unit. And I think about the project that we talked about earlier today on Harrison and Monroe. It was one lot, it will be 4. What controls, how many units, I'd like to have a better understanding.
I think the key for residential is the impervious surface. And the key for down here in transportation is trips data generated is how they base the fee off of. And trips data generation is, how did I describe it? A trip calculation generated by engineering standards and guidelines that they have a
There's a big
reference
manual.
material that, yeah, they base that off of.
Right.
All these ones on the next page are not charged by us. Collected by us, but not charged. Or, I know we collect the NCPRD
Yes.
SDCs and remit those. Do we collect the school district's SDCs and remit those to them, Mike?
I'm not sure, but I can look into it.
I'd again, back to my pre-app notes. They were all listed on my pre-app, so I was assuming I'd pay them all to the city and they would send them where they need to go.
Moving through the scary world of SDCs onto my world of utilities. We have a moderate increase. These were already pre-planned budgeted increases based on previous rate studies. So the increase for water for consumption of 0 to 3 CCF is a 2.3% increase. And then a 3.1% increase for CCFs above 4. Again, so this was in the previous fee schedule last year based on the rate schedule. So there's been no change to this. These were predetermined. And I know that we're currently doing a rate study now for fiscal year 27 and beyond. And they're looking at what these rates will go up in the future. We haven't received those back yet. All of the additional fees below are all within 2.3 to 3.1% increase, and this is just cost of inflation.
And these rates, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but we adopted 25 and 26 rates back during the budget process.
Correct.
Which had included that inflation escalator.
Yes. Something else I wanted to point out too is that we've been working with Gabriella as well to change the term low-income utility assistance. We're kind of removing the low-income label to it and just labeling it utility assistance. Just kind of something that we don't want to point out people are low-income and kind of diminish one set of people as opposed to another. So it wasn't done in the draft you guys received, but in the updated draft, we're just removing the term low income.
It would still be an income qualifying thing. I think it's just about a kind of a stigmatization element of the language.
So for SAFE, we are projecting a 5.6% increase, and for streets maintenance, it's 5.3. Again, these were pre-scheduled in last year's when we presented it in fiscal year 25. So these were on the fee schedule previously last year, and these were adopted through the methodology. I think that when we went out for SAFE and SSMP, and then the rate study, they'll look at increasing these. Finally, I wanted to point out that we added a tamper fee of $150. That's for when we go out and do shutoffs. Sometimes residents come and cut the lock off or change the meter or somehow impact the meter. That's a cost to us. And this would be a fee of if you're tampering with the meter or anything that would impact damaging it so that we have to go through and replace that meter, there's a $150 fee. And then finally, bringing us home is the right-of-way utility fee. There was no change in this. You all made a change last year in the electric and natural gas utility rates, going from 5% of gross revenue to 8% of gross revenue. Matt and I are currently tracking that, kind of see what the outcome is of that. We'd like to have a year to compare kind of apples to apples of quarterly and annual payments. But so far, it's expected to meet budget. So that was a big increase last year. This year, we have no increases projected. Same cost as the previous year. And with municipal code, I believe that these are all referenced in the code, and we have no increases projected for those. And finally,
I'm sorry, who's subjected to the curfew?
Yeah, there's some fun things in those municipal code.
Adopted in 1963, that ordinance was. I don't know. I will look that up.
Get out of here, it's 10.
Yeah.
we're at curfew.
Or you have to, or you have to pay me $300.
And again, solid waste rates, we'll talk about May 20th with Chris Bell.
Okay.
That's all I had. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, just on the water stuff, and you may not know this, but I'm just curious, like how often do we shut someone's water off? How often does that happen?
How often do we shut somebody's water off, or how often do we shut it off and then there's a tampering with it?
How often do we shut it off?
We work hard every single month to get our shutoffs down as low as we possibly can. And I don't know if you've had a chance to meet our new utility. She's not really new anymore. She's probably been here 6 months plus. Our utility billing technician, Amy, who is just an angel and calls through and sends letters, and we do door hangers and we do all these things to avoid a shutoff. And we'll work with folks on payment plans, on utility assistance to avoid that. Really, we're only doing a shutoff when we are not getting a response at all. And usually the shutoff then results in a very quick response, and we can then still assist them. Every month, there's sort of single-digit number of shutoffs that we do, single to low double-digit number of shutoffs.
I would say one to Amy, she came from Providence, where she has a great knack of talking to people who are going through financial issues. And she sits outside of my office, and she is a wizard at having these conversations because they're very difficult. She's very empathetic, and she really wants to help them. And she brings a lot to me that, you know, we have to make kind of judgment calls on things. And we're always trying to direct them to St. Vincent de Paul, direct them to 211, come up with a plan, is what she says, to really help them out. I would say at the beginning of the month, we send out like 80 to 100 late notices, like, hey, you have another week in order to make payment before shut off. We get that down into the teens, and that's because she's working hard that entire month, really communicating with them. She takes the time to call them directly. So she's really putting in the effort, and we really hate to do a shut off. But sometimes when we don't hear back or somebody's not working with us, that's when we kind of go to the shut off.
I appreciate that. It just, it just irks me when we hear that, just because it's, can't live without water.
Right.
And just people with families and stuff like that. So now I'm not saying we're doing it like crazy, but I was just curious because it just, when I hear shut off someone's water, it's kind of a gut punch. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions for Michael?
Just not SDC related.
Yeah, we'll get something back on that, I guess. There were some interesting ones in there in the code enforcement and in the police, like there's a loud party. ticket.
I did have data on that.
Oh, did you?
asked
Okay.
for that.
I did. didn't
Mary, our clerk, went back to 2004.
Yeah,
And on average, it's 2 to 3 a year that we do citations for.
okay.
For some reason, in 2024, there was 9.
Oh.
And 5 of them were all within a week in September. So I don't know what was going on then, but something loud was
And they were
going
in the
on.
same neighborhood or was the same?
I don't know.
house?
I'm just assuming if it's
Okay.
5 right after another. But mostly it's not often. And I checked with Chief Burdick on that, and they said first they go out and they give a warning. And at that point, usually people, if it's allowed tool or allowed something after 10 p.m. or loud music, people usually turn it down. So they try not to cite until they have repeated times to come back.
Thank you. I would-
You could buy a shopping cart cheaper than you could steal one. $500.
That used to be a lot of Tim's time. I know there's been stuff done to make the stores like come retrieve them and they have yeah. But I remember, 12 or 14 years ago when Tim spent a lot of time on that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Thank you, Michael, and we will circle back on the SDC questions. And now might be a good time to note that if we are going to extend past 10 p.m., we do need a motion to do that.
All right. Does anybody think they can't finish by 10 p.m. and they want to make a motion? Okay, then we're going to finish by 10 p.m., I guess. All right. Council reports, is that where we are? Oh, legislative. I didn't think about legislative. Well, we might have to skip legislative.
I'll breeze right through.
Okay.
We are tracking a lot of legislation still.
Okay.
We are approaching not a huge deadline, but the revenue forecast is coming. And then there's a second chamber deadline. And I'll just note real quick here that I won't be at the next meeting in 2 weeks. And I'm not sure that Nicole's going to have the bandwidth to get to legislative updates. So you might not have this detail next week or in 2 weeks. So next time I'm here in a month, I'm sure the legislative landscape will have shaped up quite a bit. So
Oh, yeah.
we're moving through. We're still tracking quite a few bills, but as of this morning, only 3 had hearings coming up. So I'm just going to zoom to them. HB 3179 has a hearing tomorrow regarding energy affordability and residential energy rate making.
Oh, we should send our letter that we never sent, Will. Okay. Well, you and I sent one, but then we wrote a later one and we haven't sent it, yeah.
Okay, so there's that one.
Okay.
And then under housing, 2698 also has a hearing tomorrow. Statewide home ownership goal. Well, that's a work session tomorrow, so different from a hearing. Okay, and the other
Can
one,
you go back and give me the energy one again? Sorry.
energy, 3179.
3179, okay.
Housing one.
Is that a council letter?
Mhm.
And then the other one that has a hearing, SB 974, next week on the 12th, the land use zoning clock has a hearing.
The condo bill had a hearing on Monday. Yesterday, I listened through it. I think it's gonna move. Have you heard anything different?
Haven't heard anything different. It
Okay.
looks positive.
They had a lot of,
It moved from the House already over in the Senate.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
The Senate has frankly been far more permissive in their housing policy. Like
Oh,
Senate Bill 974,
Mhm.
the shot clock one, passed unanimously from the Senate.
Mhm.
It's kind of shocking. And the House committee, they already had one hearing on it, and it's like night and day.
Oh, yeah.
Anything
Okay.
you get over to the Senate at this point, if it's housing related, I'm like, okay, it's passing.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Noting the time, any other bills? I do have 2 other items real quick for council. And I still didn't see that HB 2025 was in there as HB 2025, so still tracking that.
To the chagrin of many caucus members.
Yep, okay. I don't know of any letters in the last 2 weeks that have been sent or being written, but let me know. 2 quick questions for council. Next Tuesday, the 13th, we are leaving, we're gathering ideally like 8:45, 8:50, so that by 9 o'clock we are hitting the vehicles and driving out. We have reserved 1 city hybrid van. that can seat up to 6, including the driver, which is Nicole. And last time we did this, we just we gathered and we kind of decided who was going to drive. So we do have a vehicle for 6 at this point. I don't know if council wants to talk about it in great depth at this point or just acknowledge as a group that we have some, but we're going to need some other folks to drive, and Emma and I can volunteer as well. But just want to throw it out there if council has any thoughts or concerns. It's going to be kind of an all workday situation. We'll leave here at 9. We're scheduled to get to the Grand Ronde at 11. The first hour from 11 to noon will be a meeting with the council, the tribal council. And we're working out agenda based on the projects we have going on, requests to have updates from projects that they're working on, particularly at the falls and in the metropolitan area. And then I believe they're hosting us for lunch. And then the last hour from 1 to 2 will be an opportunity for council to see the Chachalú Museum, which I believe has had maybe 1 or 2 exhibit iterations since we were there a couple of years ago. So, and I don't know what expansion means, but I thought I saw somewhere that they've expanded their facility. So sometime with the Chachalú, we intend to leave Grand Ronde around 2 and be back in Milwaukie around 4. So that's the day, next Tuesday. Any thoughts, questions, comments about that day or about carpooling beyond what I've kind of thrown out there already?
I guess I must have I feel like I drove last time and I drove my EV, so it must be close enough to get there and back in one charge.
I'm very sure there are chargers at the casino.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, there are. Okay, yeah.
I have sad news. I'm no longer able to come.
Right.
Sad news. I'm no longer able to take the day off work, so I can't be coming. So hopefully that helps with the van, but I'm really sad to miss it.
Well, I'll have my car ready to go if I need to drive.
Okay.
Same.
Okay, great. So we'll aim to maybe 8:45, 8:50, and then by 9 o'clock I'd like to be hitting the road. I don't want to be late. And we're also putting, Emma and I are going to chat about tomorrow. We'll bring some city swag to exchange. We didn't do that 2 years ago, and I've felt bad about it every time I think about it since then. So we're going to put some thoughts in it. If there's something that you would like us to see in a gift offering kind of a thing, let us know and we can put that together this week. If you have any thoughts on that.
Okay.
Other than Grand Ronde, as is quite well known, especially on Main Street, our beloved Pietro's is moving. The sign went down, and apparently that's perhaps the city's most popular social media post ever.
Over 400 comments. They
400
just keep
comments.
rolling in. I did turn off notifications on my phone because all night.
2,000, at least 2,000 likes or reactions on Facebook. So with that, it's just an acknowledgement that council's had pizza the first Tuesday of the month for the last year or so. And staff is up for continuing to get food, but with Pietro's leaving Main Street, it might not be as accessible as it was. So you don't have to answer now, but I just wanted to throw out there, what else would you like staff to procure on the first Tuesdays of the week of the month? What are their food options? And again, don't have to answer that now unless you have an immediate thought, but let us know if there's something you'd like us to get for food with Pietro's leaving.
Okay.
Cafe Vita?
Oh, they're not open in the evenings. I don't think, unless they've changed since Freem opened, maybe.
I've got bad news. We've got 7 minutes to decide, or we can wait till later.
Yeah, let's not go down this road.
I just want to throw it out there. Just send me comments. That's all I have.
No. Okay. Council reports.
I've got 2 things really quickly. First, Councilor Costa-Brady and I had a good meeting earlier this week or last. They fly by with Providence nurses from representing ONA. These folks, I think, described this tension where there's a great OPB article that I read today about how hospitals are facing a real crisis in their funding. There's a good podcast about it too that you can listen to. At the same time, our nurses are saying that there's a real desire for more capacity and development in our hospital here. And so I think for a topic for a future work session and something that I would love to talk with Providence more about is what would it look like? How can we encourage them to do more development here? How might this fit into our economic
More
development
development
goal?
meaning expanding the hospital?
Expanding the hospital in some way. I think they mentioned specifically the ER is very overburdened and they've got a lot of folks who are boarders. They're sitting out in the hallways waiting for care. Right now, the hospital is our largest employer here in Milwaukee. And I think it would be really challenging to see that kind of plateau and not expand or even cut back, which was the scary thing they talked about a lot in the article. So I think starting up those conversations with the hospital to make sure they have a long-term plan for our city and see what we can do as good partners to encourage future development is something that I'd love to see. I bumped into, fortunately, the Providence GR person was at your State of the City address. And so started talking to them to hopefully find time to talk to see what that might look like. And maybe we could follow up with things that you would want to bring forward to that conversation.
Okay, second thing?
Second thing was I was able to go out and tour the development along King Road. And I think a few things for that middle housing conversation that we have and kind of follow up to some things that we heard. Two things kind of stood out. First is I think that there's a real opportunity with our SPOT program to see some investments in bollards or other cheaper investments along that north that was created. I see residents, I know we've talked about the challenges between with the VUNORF as implemented versus designed. Residents initially wanted that VUNORF, and now they're really having some challenges with it. I think as we think about future VUNORF conversations, this is a good test case to look at. But frankly, to start some small investments there would be helpful. To the question that I posed to Vera, I think it might be helpful for us to revisit what notices are we giving developers, and when they're having a conversation about an individual lot of land, what questions are we asking them about potential future development in the adjoining areas? What are we allowed to ask them about? But having that conversation with the acknowledgement that this development might be happening more and might be happening across a neighborhood, hopefully can address some of these things. I think a third unmentioned component would be just more notice to our whole city about middle housing and what will happen. This is a
Well, that's the whole
unique
purpose of
development.
the conversation.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of the next meeting.
Yeah, and I think it is,
absolutely.
for the folks who don't come to these meetings, is there something we put in the pilot, some other way that we notice? But those are some of the things that I'm drilling on after those conversations.
Are you waiting to, no, nothing?
Yeah, I'll just go real quick. Just to add to what Council President was talking about, one of the things the nurses discussed was that the lack of investment. They had discussed with Providence not too long ago about expanding, and they said there's just no money. And then shortly after that, this happened, which they announced April 16th of 2025, a $10 million expansion for Providence Willamette Falls, which to the nurses kind of felt like a slap to the face. Does kind of to our community too. You're not willing to invest in our community, but you're willing to invest in others and then say you don't have money. So that's just a little disingenuous. The other thing is I met with members of the Island Station neighborhood and walked the neighborhood with them. Met with them about some of their concerns for Sparrow. They're not, a lot of them aren't necessarily opposed to the development, but they want to see before a new development, they want a commitment from the city to take care of some of the old infrastructure issues that they've been having that they feel they've been ignored on. One of those things is well, I don't have to get into the infrastructure stuff, but another thing they brought up was they appreciate how responsive Milwaukie PD has been to when there's encampments at Sparrow. However, they would be even more appreciative if they would increase a number of patrols, because it doesn't seem like they're saying that they don't really see a lot of police patrols that go on out in that area, but they do respond very quickly when there is an issue. Also talked to one of the residents there, Dave Caldwaller, about some green space that is on his property that he's willing to donate or sell or even donate to the city, because he feels like they would probably be better stewards of that space. Right now he gets a lot of campers down in there, and it causes him to have to do a lot of cleanup. And it might be a piece of land that we would need for Sparrow because it's right down in where that water area might be. But yeah, just some of the stuff that speaking to them, it would just be good to try to see if some of their concerns can be addressed.
Mayor, point of order, move to extend the meeting to 10:10.
All right, it's been moved to extend the meeting to 10:10. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We are extended to 10:10?
Was there a second?
Oh, there wasn't a
I'll
second.
No, it's 9:59. I'm done.
Are you?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. Well, the only thing I will say is that, the DAC is having a tour of Concord this week. I tried to get an invitation to all of you. I was shut down by NCPRD on that, but they did say that they expect in June to do a wider, like, elected officials tour of Concord. And I don't think I have anything else that I need to keep us here. To the DAC tour? No. No. I mean, no. I mean, you could show up and, yeah. Anyway, I mean, I did try to invite you along, but I was shut down on that. Okay, I got nothing else that can't wait or can't be put in notes, so.
Move to adjourn.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. We are adjourned.
Hey, you were.